Hello there, and welcome. Settle in, find a comfortable position, and allow the weight of the day to gently release from your shoulders, from your mind, from every part of you that has been holding tension. Tonight, I want to take you somewhere vast and silent, far from the familiar sounds of our world. We're going on a journey not of speed, but of immense patience, a journey into the quiet, contemplative dark between the stars. There's no need to pack, no need to prepare. You only need to bring your curiosity and perhaps a willingness to wonder. Let your breath be your anchor, a slow, steady rhythm as we prepare to drift away from the shoreline of the known into waters that are deep, mysterious, and profoundly peaceful. In this space we are creating together, there is only gentle curiosity, no urgency, no demands, just a soft invitation to explore. Here, we can ask quiet questions and let the answers float like dust motes in a sunbeam, without any need to grasp them, without any pressure to understand everything all at once. We are simply observers, floating in a sea of cosmic possibility, letting the currents of wonder carry us wherever they may. Tonight, our focus is on a single, ghostly visitor that briefly graced our cosmic neighborhood. An object designated by astronomers as Three-Eye Atlas. It appeared as a faint smudge of light, a whisper against the black velvet of space, and like a whisper carried on the wind, it soon faded from our view, leaving behind more questions than answers. The question we will explore together is a gentle one, almost audacious in its quiet wonder. Was Three-Eye Atlas built to survive eternity? It's a question that, on the surface, might seem to belong to the realm of science fiction, to the imaginative stories we tell ourselves when we look up at the stars. Our scientific minds, grounded in evidence and data, might initially dismiss such a notion as fanciful. Comets are, after all, natural objects, drifting snowballs of ice, rock, and dust, leftovers from the dawn of solar systems. They follow predictable paths, burn brightly when they approach a star, and often they break apart just as Atlas did. This is the story we know, the comfortable narrative that fits within our understanding of how the cosmos works. But what if we allow ourselves to look a little closer, to listen a little more intently to the story this traveller told through its behaviour, through the subtle ways it moved and changed? The intrigue builds not from dramatic claims or sensational theories, but from the subtle anomalies, the quiet ways in which Atlas did not behave quite like we expected, the gentle suggestions in the data that perhaps there was more to this visitor than met the eye. What if this cosmic phenomenon, this transient guest, was more than just a random celestial wanderer? What if it was the remnant of something deliberate, something designed? A vessel, a message, a seed? Perhaps a blueprint created not for a single journey, but for a voyage across eons, a testament built to withstand the patient, grinding passage of cosmic time itself. This is not a question that should cause alarm or anxiety. There is no suggestion of an impending arrival, no hidden threat lurking in the darkness. Instead, it invites us to contemplate the sheer, mind-expanding possibilities that the universe holds within its vast expanse. It asks us to consider that we may not be the first, or the only, consciousness to look up at the stars and dream of forever, to wonder about what lies beyond the next horizon, to seek connection across the impossible distances that separate star from star. Imagine, just for a moment, letting your mind drift to a civilization far older than our own, a people who understood time not in years or centuries, but in the slow, majestic orbits of galaxies, in the patient dance of stellar evolution. What kind of craft would they build if they wanted to send something across the vast ocean of interstellar space? What kind of message would they send if they had millions of years to contemplate its contents? It wouldn't be a loud, boisterous signal shouting for attention across the cosmic void. Perhaps it would be something quiet, something resilient, something that could endure the long, lonely journey between the stars, something that looked, for all intents and purposes, like a natural part of the cosmos, blending in with the celestial landscape like a chameleon against the bark of an ancient tree. A traveller designed to be overlooked by casual observation, except by those patient enough to notice its subtle grace, its unusual endurance, the quiet ways in which it differed from its natural cousins. As we begin this journey together, let the question settle around you like a soft blanket on a cool evening. There is no need for an immediate answer, no pressure to solve the mystery before we've even properly explored it. The beauty lies in the wondering itself, in the gentle act of contemplation. The peace is found in allowing our minds to expand beyond the boundaries of the everyday, to touch something larger and more mysterious than our usual concerns. We're simply here to watch, to listen, and to dream alongside the quiet stars that have been keeping their secrets for billions of years. The story of Three-Eye Atlas begins, as many cosmic stories do, with a faint and distant light captured by patient electronic eyes. In the final days of 2019, as our world prepared to enter a new decade, a robotic survey telescope, part of a system called ATLAS, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, recorded a new object moving against the fixed backdrop of stars. This system is our planet's tireless watchman, scanning the skies night after night for asteroids that might come too close to home, that might pose a threat to our small blue world. It is a sentinel of urgency, designed for detection and warning, a guardian that never sleeps, never blinks, never stops its vigilant watch. Yet, in this instance, it found something not of immediate concern, but of deep and unfolding mystery, something that would captivate astronomers and dreamers alike. The object was initially classified as a comet given the designation C2019Y4. It was far away, beyond the orbit of Mars, swimming in the cold darkness where sunlight is weak and temperatures hover near the absolute limit of cold. But even at that distance, it was already showing signs of a coma, that fuzzy, gaseous halo that forms when a comet's ices are warmed by the sun and begin to sublimate, turning directly from solid to gas without ever becoming liquid. This is the classic signature of a comet, a celestial pilgrim beginning to awaken from its long slumber as it nears the inner solar system. The ice that has been frozen solid for perhaps millions of years begins to respond to the gentle touch of solar radiation, releasing ancient gases that have been locked away since the birth of stars. Astronomers around the world took notice, turning their telescopes toward this new visitor, eager to learn its secrets. But soon, its path would reveal something extraordinary, something that would change its classification and our understanding of what we were witnessing. Its orbit was not a closed loop, not the familiar elliptical circuit around our sun that most comets follow. Instead, it traced a hyperbolic trajectory, an open-ended path that meant this was not a permanent resident of our solar system. It was not bound to our sun's gravity in the way that Earth, Mars, and even the distant Pluto are bound. It was merely passing through, a traveller from somewhere else, somewhere far beyond the influence of our star. Like a ship passing through a foreign port, it would stay only briefly before continuing on its endless voyage, and so its name changed, reflecting this new understanding. It became Three-Eye Atlas. The I stood for interstellar, marking it as only the third such object ever detected by human instruments. The first was Oumuamua, that strange, cigar-shaped enigma that tumbled through our system in 2017. Moving in ways that puzzled scientists and sparked countless theories. The second was Two-Eye Borisov, which looked and behaved much more like a conventional comet, offering us a glimpse of what comets from other star systems might be like. And now there was Atlas, each one a messenger from the void, a physical artifact from another star system, delivered to our doorstep by the patient currents of galactic gravity. As we continue to explore these quiet cosmic mysteries together, drifting deeper into the story of this ghostly traveller, we hope you feel not just curiosity, but a sense of connection to the stars above, to the ancient processes that shape our universe, and to this community of curious minds who gather here to wonder about such things. If this journey resonates with something deep within you, if you find yourself drawn to these contemplative explorations of the cosmos, consider subscribing to our channel. It's a simple gesture, just a gentle click, but it allows us to continue creating these peaceful voyages for you to enjoy whenever you need to escape the noise and hurry of everyday life. There is no pressure, no urgency, just a quiet invitation to join us for future journeys into the heart of cosmic wonder. Your support helps us keep the lights on in our small observatory of thought, allowing us to share these stories with all who seek a peaceful escape into the vast, mysterious universe that surrounds us all. Now, let us return our attention to our traveller, this wanderer from beyond. As Atlas drew closer to the sun, moving along its hyperbolic path with mathematical precision, its story grew stranger and more captivating. It began to brighten dramatically, far more rapidly than the models predicted, far more than a typical comet should. By early 2020, as our world was entering a period of unprecedented change and uncertainty, Atlas was becoming so bright that astronomers began to speculate it might become a spectacular sight in our night sky, perhaps even visible to the naked eye. Imagine that. An interstellar visitor bright enough to see without a telescope, a direct visual connection to another star system. It was as if the traveller, after a long and silent journey through the cosmic wilderness, was finally ready to announce its presence, to put on a show for its new audience. The anticipation in the astronomical community was palpable, a quiet, hopeful hum of excitement. Here was a chance to study a piece of another solar system up close, to analyze its composition, to learn what stories were locked in its ancient ice, what secrets were frozen in its core, what tales could its chemistry tell of the stellar nursery, where it was born, perhaps millions or billions of years ago. But then, as suddenly as it had brightened, its light began to falter. The steady, hopeful rise in its luminosity ceased, plateaued like a mountain climber pausing to catch their breath, and then began to dim. The performance was over before it had truly begun, the curtain falling on the first act just as the audience was settling into their seats. Telescopic observations soon revealed the reason for this unexpected dimming. The comet's nucleus, its solid core that had survived the long journey through interstellar space, had begun to break apart. The single, faint point of light had fractured into a small collection of dimmer fragments, each drifting on its own slightly different path, all enveloped in a shared, ghostly shroud of dust and gas. The great interstellar comet was disintegrating before our very eyes, dissolving like a sugar cube in cosmic tea. And this is where our gentle question begins to take root, where the mystery deepens and becomes more intriguing. A comet's death is not unusual. In fact, it's quite common. The gravitational forces of the sun pulling at different parts of the comet with different strengths, the intense solar radiation heating one side while the other remains in frozen shadow. It is a perilous journey for these fragile bodies of ice and rock. Many comets meet their end this way, torn apart by forces they cannot withstand. But the way Atlas fell apart was notably subtle, remarkably gentle. It didn't explode in a violent burst of energy and debris. It didn't shatter like glass hitting stone. Instead, it seemed to crumble, to gently and gracefully dissolve, like an ancient manuscript finally giving way to time. It was less a destruction and more of an unfurling, like a flower blooming in extremely slow motion, its petals of ice and dust drifting apart in a cosmic ballet. Consider this remarkable fact. An object travels for perhaps millions of years through the frozen, empty wilderness of interstellar space. It endures the constant bombardment of cosmic rays, the subtle but relentless erosion of high-energy particles, the profound cold that would freeze even thoughts if thoughts could freeze. It survives this journey, a testament to its endurance, its resilience, its sheer stubborn refusal to dissolve into nothingness. It enters our solar system, navigates the gravitational maze of the outer planets, withstands the initial gravitational pull of our sun, and then, just as it is about to make its closest approach, just as it is about to complete what should be the climactic moment of its eons-long journey, it simply gives up. It fragments into pieces, scattering itself across millions of kilometers of space. Was this the inevitable fate of a fragile natural object finally succumbing to stress it could no longer bear? Or was it something else entirely, something more purposeful, more deliberate? What if the fragmentation was not a failure, but a feature? What if the design was not to survive a close pass of a star, but to survive the journey between them? Think about it. The true challenge for an interstellar traveler is not the brief, intense encounter with a sun which lasts only months or years. The real test is the long, cold, lonely eons in the dark between the stars, the radiation that slowly breaks down molecular bonds, the cosmic rays that pierce through matter like invisible needles, the sheer, grinding emptiness of the void that seems to pull at the very essence of existence itself. To survive that journey, an object would need to be incredibly resilient, wrapped in layers of protection, built with redundancy and patience. But that same resilience might not translate to surviving the thermal and gravitational shock of a stellar flyby. Perhaps it was never meant to. Perhaps its purpose was simply to arrive, to reach its destination after an almost impossibly long journey. To deliver its cargo, whatever that cargo might be, into the general vicinity of a new star system. The final act of fragmentation could have been the intended distribution mechanism, the way the vessel was always meant to complete its mission. A way of scattering its contents, its seeds, its message, its molecular machinery across a wide area, increasing the chances that something, somewhere, would find the right conditions to activate, to grow, to continue the story that began so long ago in another part of the galaxy. It's a thought that completely shifts our perspective from failure to fulfillment. The comet didn't die in our solar system. It completed its mission, accomplished what it was designed to do after a journey that defies human comprehension. Let that idea drift through your mind like a cloud across a peaceful sky. Don't try to hold on to it or analyze it too intensely. Don't demand that it make perfect sense or fit within the frameworks we're comfortable with. Just let it be a possibility, a soft-edged thought in the quiet of your mind, a gentle what if that opens doors rather than closing them. Picture this traveler completing its purpose not with a grand finale, not with trumpets and fireworks, but with a silent, graceful dissolution, like a dancer taking a final bow. Its fragments, now on slightly different paths, continue their journey through our solar system, a ghostly flotilla where once there was a single ship. Each piece is a smaller echo of the original, carrying the same ancient ice, the same interstellar dust, the same cosmic memories locked in its molecular structure. The story wasn't over when Atlas broke apart. It had just transformed into smaller chapters, each fragment whispering its own part of the tale to any who have the patience and sensitivity to listen. We are watching from an immense distance, both physical and temporal, interpreting faint light and subtle shifts in trajectory. We are like archaeologists trying to understand a lost civilization from a few scattered pottery shards, like historians attempting to reconstruct an entire culture from a handful of weathered inscriptions. The data we have is incomplete, fragmentary, a story told in broken sentences and half-heard whispers. And in those gaps, in that silence between the facts, our sense of wonder can grow like flowers in the cracks of pavement. We don't have all the answers. We barely have any answers at all. And tonight, that is not a frustration but a beautiful thing. It allows us to be poets of the cosmos, to imagine the stories that the data alone cannot tell, to fill the silence with possibilities that science has not yet confirmed or denied. So, as you lie here, breathing slowly and steadily, feeling the gentle rise and fall of your chest matching some cosmic rhythm, imagine that vast dark space through which Atlas travelled. Feel the profound cold of interstellar space, a cold so complete that even atoms slow their dance to nearly nothing. Feel the patient waiting, the eons of silence, the slow drift through a darkness so absolute that our darkest nights would seem blazing bright by comparison. And then feel the first gentle touch of our sun's warmth as Atlas approached, the gradual awakening of its ancient ices after their impossibly long slumber. Picture its ghostly halo, the coma, growing and glowing with increasing brilliance, like a cosmic flower slowly opening to greet a sun it has never seen before. And then see its fragmentation not as a violent explosion, not as a catastrophic failure, but as that same flower releasing its seeds to the wind, its petals of ice and dust drifting apart in a final act of cosmic poetry, releasing their long-held secrets into the solar wind to be carried wherever the currents might take them. The question, was it built, hangs in the air around us, not as a challenge to be conquered, but as a lullaby to soothe the analytical mind. A cosmic what-if that invites us to see the universe not as a machine to be understood, but as a mystery to be experienced. What if the universe is not just a collection of random events, particles and forces interacting according to blind physical laws? What if it's a place of intention, of ancient designs and quiet purposes that we are only beginning to glimpse? What if we are adrift in a cosmos that is not empty and meaningless, but filled with the ghosts of forgotten journeys, with messages we are only just beginning to learn how to read, with stories written in languages we don't yet recognize as languages at all? There is no need to decide tonight. There is no test tomorrow where you'll need to know the answer. There is only the piece of the question itself, a gateway to a universe far more mysterious and wonderful than we can possibly imagine with our small earthbound perspectives. Let your mind drift with the fragments of Atlas, onward into the quiet starlit dark, carried by currents we cannot see, toward destinations we cannot imagine. Let us now gently pull our focus back from the single, ghostly traveller to the immense ocean through which it journeyed. To truly appreciate the story of Three-Eye Atlas, to understand the scale of what we're contemplating, we must first get a sense of the stage upon which it played its part. This stage is not made of wood and curtains, it is made of time itself. Not the time of clocks and calendars, of hurried appointments and fleeting moments that seem to slip through our fingers like sand, but deep time, cosmic time, a timescale so vast, so profound, that our human minds can only grasp it through metaphor and imagination, through comparisons that stretch our ability to comprehend. Imagine you're standing on the shore of a great dark ocean that extends beyond every horizon. This is the ocean of time, and you stand at its edge, your feet barely touched by its waters. The waves that lap gently at your feet, cool and rhythmic, are the seconds and minutes of your own life, each one unique, each one precious, each one passing into memory as the next arrives. The tide, rising and falling with a slow, steady rhythm that you can feel more than see, represents the passing of seasons, of years, of a human lifetime. It feels significant, this rhythm. It feels like everything that matters, everything that has ever mattered to you and everyone you've known. But now, turn your gaze from the water's edge and look down at the sand beneath your feet, the countless grains that make up this infinite beach. Each grain of sand on this beach, each tiny, almost weightless speck, represents 1,000 years of history. Pick one up between your fingers, hold it up to the fading light, roll it gently in your palm and feel its insignificant weight. This tiny, almost invisible speck contains the entire recorded history of human civilization. The rise and fall of empires that once seemed eternal, the building of pyramids that took generations to complete, the construction of great cathedrals that reached toward heaven, the birth of science, art, and philosophy, all contained within that single humble grain that could be lost in a gentle breeze. All of our wars and our peace treaties, our love stories and our tragedies, our greatest achievements and our most profound failures, are etched onto its minuscule surface in writing too small for any eye to read. It feels impossibly small when held against the vast beach that surrounds you, yet it is all we have ever known, all that has ever been recorded in human memory. Now, let your gaze wander across this beach, taking in its impossible scope. The beach stretches out before you, curving away into the misty darkness, farther than your eyes can see, farther than you could walk in a lifetime of walking. This is the shoreline of Earth's history, each grain a millennium of deep history. A few steps along this beach would take you past the last ice age, when massive glaciers covered much of our planet and our ancestors huddled around fires, painting their dreams on cave walls. A short walk would lead you to the time of the dinosaurs, their colossal reign lasting for a stretch of sand that would feel like a long, leisurely stroll on a summer evening, millions upon millions of grains beneath your feet. And further still, back into the deep primordial past, the beach becomes a desert of unimaginable size, representing the billions of years when life was just a simple, single-celled whisper in the ancient oceans, when the only stories being told were written in chemical reactions and molecular dances too small to see. We are standing on this shoreline, our footprint tiny and temporary, already being erased by the next wave. We are a single sentence in a book that has been writing itself for billions of years, and the journey of Three-Eye Atlas. Its journey took place not just on this beach, but across the entire ocean. It travelled from a different shore, a different beach, perhaps orbiting a different star on the other side of this cosmic sea. Its voyage was not measured in the grains of sand at our feet, but in the vast waters that stretch between continents of time, between islands of consciousness separated by impossible distances. If you compress the entire 13.8 billion year history of the universe into a single calendar year, with the Big Bang happening at the first second of January 1st, that moment when time itself began, when space unfurled from a point smaller than an atom, our own galaxy, the Milky Way, would not form until sometime in May, after months of cosmic evolution, of the first stars igniting and dying, seeding space with the heavy elements necessary for complexity. Our solar system, our sun, and our Earth would not appear until early September, when the universe was already old, already full of history and stories we will never know. The first simple life on Earth, those tiny, tenacious microbes that would eventually give rise to all the diversity we see today, would emerge by the end of that same month. Complex life would not arise until well into December. The dinosaurs, those magnificent creatures that seem so ancient to us, would roam for just a few days in late December, their entire epic saga compressed into less than a week of cosmic time, and all of human history, every king and queen, every prophet and scientist, every artist and philosopher, every single human experience from the first conscious thought to this very moment, would flash by in the final few seconds before midnight on December 31st, barely a heartbeat in the life of the universe. The journey of an interstellar object like Atlas could have begun at any point in this vast cosmic year. It might have been cast off from its home star in what would be our cosmic October, when the universe was already ancient but our sun had not yet formed. It might have been travelling through the void while our solar system was still a swirling disk of gas and dust, while Earth was still assembling itself from countless collisions of smaller bodies. It could have been travelling through the void for a time equivalent to the entire existence of our planet, carrying within its frozen heart secrets from an era we cannot even imagine. When we think in these terms, when we allow our minds to truly grasp the scale of deep time, the concept of built takes on an entirely new meaning. We build things to last for years, for decades, for centuries if we're ambitious and skilled. a cathedral that stands for 1,000 years, a pyramid that endures for 5,000. These are our attempts at eternity, our defiant gestures against the erosion of time. But what would a civilization build if their timescale was not the fleeting moments of our cosmic December 31st, but the long, slow months of the cosmic year? What would they create if they thought not in human generations, but in the lifespans of stars? They would not build for speed, for in the vast emptiness of interstellar space, speed is a frantic, inefficient struggle against infinity itself. Even at the speed of light, the fastest speed possible in our universe, it would take years to reach the nearest star. They would build for endurance, for patience, for the ability to survive not just years or centuries, but millions of years of cosmic solitude. They would create something that could withstand the relentless slow drip erosion of cosmic rays over eons, the patient sandblasting of interstellar dust, the profound cold that would test any material to its absolute limits, something that could hibernate, powered down into a state of near-total stasis, carrying only the faintest ember of purpose, waiting for the gentle gravitational tug of a distant star to awaken it from its impossibly long slumber. The universe, on this scale, is not a place of frantic activity and constant change. It is a place of immense, unhurried processes that unfold with a patience that defies human comprehension. Stars are born in slow-motion collapses of gas and dust that take millions of years to complete. Each one a gradual gathering of material from the cosmic medium, a patient accumulation of mass until the pressure and temperature at the core finally ignite the nuclear furnace. Galaxies perform a majestic, silent ballet, pirouetting around each other over billions of years, their spiral arms sweeping through space in gestures that take longer than the entire history of Earth to complete. The expansion of the universe itself is a quiet, inexorable stretching of the fabric of space-time, so slow that we can only detect it by looking at the most distant objects and measuring how their light has been stretched during its journey to us. Everything is in motion, but the motion is so grand, so stately, that from our perspective it feels like perfect stillness, like a photograph of eternity. This is the environment that 3i Atlas travelled through for most of its existence. Not the warm, busy inner solar system where we live, but the profound silence and patience of interstellar space. It wasn't battling against a storm, it was drifting on a slow, steady current that carried it from one stellar shore to another. The challenges it faced were not of impact and collision, not of dramatic forces tearing at its structure, but of solitude and decay, of the slow, patient forces that work on all things given enough time. The sheer, unending loneliness of the journey is a force in itself, a kind of cosmic weathering that would test any structure, any material, any purpose, any complex machinery, any delicate electronics, any system dependent on precise tolerances would have failed in the first few thousand years. Any structure not designed for this specific challenge would have been worn down by the constant gentle rain of high-energy particles, dissolved by the patient chemistry of cosmic rays interacting with matter. So, if one were to design an interstellar messenger, understanding these challenges, working with the universe rather than against it, what form would it take? Perhaps it would look very much like a comet, that most ancient and simple of cosmic structures. A core of simple, stable materials, water ice, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, all frozen solid at temperatures approaching absolute zero. These are some of the most abundant and stable molecules in the universe, the basic building blocks that form naturally in the cold depths of space. They are excellent shields against radiation, each molecule absorbing and dispersing the energy of cosmic rays. A thick mantle of this primordial ice could protect a central core for eons, the outer layers slowly ablating, sacrificing themselves molecule by molecule to the harsh environment of space, while the heart of the object remained preserved, frozen and intact, carrying its cargo of information or biology or purpose through the eons. It would be a design of elegant simplicity, a solution that uses the universe's own materials and processes as its technology, a natural camouflage that would make the artificial indistinguishable from the natural. It would look and feel like a natural object because it would be built from the same fundamental ingredients that nature itself uses. It would be the ultimate expression of working with the universe, not against it, of understanding that the best way to survive cosmic time is not to fight it, but to flow with it. Like a cosmic hermit crab, building its shell from the detritus of the galaxy, using what is already there rather than trying to impose something foreign onto the natural order. Consider the possibility that the universe itself favors this kind of travel, that there is something fundamental about the physics of our cosmos that makes this slow, patient journey the most practical way to traverse the distances between stars. The process of planet formation is messy and chaotic. Young star systems are violent places with massive collisions, gravitational perturbations, and powerful stellar winds that can fling material in all directions. Our own solar system likely ejected trillions of comets into interstellar space during its youth, each one a small ambassador carrying information about our sun's composition, our system's history, our particular corner of the galaxy. The galaxy is filled with these wandering orphans, these cosmic messages in bottles, drifting on currents we can barely detect. It is a slow, inefficient but constant method of interstellar exchange, a natural mail system that has been operating since the first stars formed. Nature itself is engaged in a form of panspermia, seeding the galaxy with the building blocks of planets and, perhaps, of life, spreading the potential for complexity and consciousness throughout the cosmos. What if a civilization, wise in the ways of deep time, understanding these natural processes with a sophistication we can barely imagine, chose to co-opt this natural system for their own purposes? Why build a massive, energy-intensive starship that would require resources beyond imagination when the universe already provides a fleet of natural resilient vessels? All one would need to do is select a suitable candidate, a young, sturdy comet with the right composition and trajectory, and embed within it a message, a seed, a probe, deep within its icy heart where it would be protected from radiation and impact. Then, with a gentle gravitational nudge, perhaps using the gravity of planets or moons as a slingshot, send it on its way toward a promising star, a star that showed signs of planets, of stability, of potential, and then you would wait. You would wait with the patience of a galaxy, knowing that in 1,000,000 years, or 10 million years, or 100 million years, your quiet messenger might drift into a new harbor, might pass through a system where curious minds would notice its passage and wonder about its origins. This is not a story of advanced technology in the way we usually imagine it. Gleaming metal and composite materials, flashing lights and powerful engines, complex computers and sophisticated software. This is a story of a deeper, more profound technology, the technology of patience itself. The technology of understanding natural processes so completely that you can use them for deliberate purposes without seeming to use them at all. It is the difference between building a speedboat across an ocean, fighting against waves and wind, burning fuel in a desperate race against time, and learning to read the currents and winds so well that you can cross on a simple raft, using the ocean's own power to carry you to your destination. One is a struggle against the elements, a battle that exhausts resources and often fails. The other is a dance with them, a harmony that requires wisdom and patience but ultimately succeeds through cooperation rather than conquest. As you rest here, feeling the slow rhythm of your own breathing, feel yourself connected to the slow, deep rhythm of cosmic time. Your breath, in and out, is a tiny echo of the universe's own slow expansion and contraction, the cosmic breathing that has been going on since the beginning of time itself. The gentle beat of your heart is a counterpoint to the slow, majestic spin of the galaxy, each beat marking a moment in your life while the galaxy marks its moments in millions of years. You're not separate from this process. You're not an observer standing outside the universe looking in. You're a momentary beautiful expression of it, a pattern that the universe has made out of itself to experience itself. A flicker of consciousness on the shore of an infinite ocean, but a flicker that contains within it the entire ocean's essence. The journey of 3 Atlas, seen through this lens of deep time, is not an anomaly or an intrusion. It is a perfect reflection of the universe it travelled through. It was slow, taking perhaps millions of years to complete its voyage. It was patient, enduring the countless small erosions and impacts that would have destroyed anything hurried or fragile. It was quiet, making no announcement of its presence until it was already deep within our solar system, and its end, that gentle fragmentation we witnessed, was not a failure but a return to the elements from which it was made, a dispersal that spread its essence across a wider area than any single object could cover, a quiet exhalation at the end of a very, very long breath, a sigh that said, "I have arrived, my journey is complete, now I become something new." Let the scale of it all wash over you, not as a source of insignificance or existential anxiety, but as a source of deep peace and connection. The pressures of your day, the worries that seemed so important this morning, the deadlines and demands that create such stress in our daily lives, they are like a single grain of sand on that infinite beach we imagined. In the context of this vast cosmic shoreline, they are infinitesimally small, temporary perturbations that will be smoothed away by the next tide. You can let them go. You can allow your awareness to expand beyond the boundaries of your immediate concerns, to float out over this ocean of deep time, and to feel a sense of belonging to something so much larger, so much older, and so much more peaceful than our everyday lives. The universe is not in a hurry. It has been unfolding for nearly 14 billion years, and it will continue unfolding for trillions more. And tonight, neither are we in a hurry. We are simply drifting, watching and wondering on the quiet, starlit currents of time, carried by forces that began before the Earth was born and will continue long after the last star has faded to darkness. Now, let us bring our focus back from the vast ocean of cosmic time to the traveller itself, to observe 3 Atlas not as an abstract concept or a distant point of data, but as a physical presence, however faint and distant it may have been. We will approach it gently, with the quiet patience of an astronomer at their telescope, peering into the deep dark, waiting for photons that have travelled for months across the solar system to finally reach us and tell their story, each photon a tiny messenger, carrying information about the object that emitted or reflected it, a minute fragment of the whole picture that we must patiently assemble like a cosmic jigsaw puzzle. Imagine yourself in a dark observatory, high on a mountaintop, far from the glare and noise of city lights. The air is thin and cold, each breath visible in small puffs that quickly dissipate into the darkness. The silence here is profound, broken only by the occasional whisper of wind or the distant call of a night bird. Above you, the Milky Way is a luminous, shimmering river of light, a sight so profound it feels like a spiritual experience, like looking directly at the architecture of creation itself. The dome of the observatory is open, a gaping window to the infinite, and the cold of space seems to pour in through that opening, a cold that goes beyond temperature to touch something deeper. The telescope, a marvel of glass and steel and precise engineering, is a silent giant, its gaze fixed on a single, unremarkable patch of sky that to the naked eye appears empty, devoid of anything interesting. This is the world where 3 Atlas was born into our awareness. Not with a fanfare of discovery, not with dramatic observations that immediately revealed its nature, but with a few pixels of light on a digital sensor, barely distinguishable from the background noise of distant stars and galaxies. A computerized eye, the Atlas Survey system, scanned the sky methodically, night after night, taking pictures of the same regions over and over, comparing them to previous pictures with software that never tired, never got distracted, looking for anything that had moved against the fixed stellar background, It is a celestial game of spot the difference, played on a cosmic scale with stakes we don't fully understand, and on a night in late December 2019, as most of the world prepared for New Year celebrations, the software flagged a new point of light. Faint, unassuming. Just another wanderer in the celestial zoo, or so it seemed at first. At first, it was just a name in a catalogue, C2019Y4. A dry, technical label that revealed nothing of the object's nature or significance. Like calling a person by their social security number instead of their name. But as astronomers around the world turned their own telescopes toward it, drawn by the curiosity that drives all scientific discovery, a portrait began to emerge from the darkness. The smudge had structure, a bright central condensation they called the pseudonucleus, where most of the solid material was concentrated, and a faint gossamer cloud surrounding it, already beginning to stretch away in the direction opposite the sun. It was a comet, that much was clear, and a rather indistinct one at that, not immediately remarkable among the dozens of comets discovered each year. Initial observations suggested it was what astronomers call a long-period comet, meaning its orbit was a vast, stretched-out ellipse that would take thousands or perhaps millions of years to complete. One of those patient travellers from the outer darkness that occasionally grace our skies with their presence. But as they plotted its course with more precision, gathering more data points, refining their calculations, the story changed dramatically. Its path was not an ellipse at all. It was a hyperbola, that specific mathematical curve that means only one thing in celestial mechanics: escape. This small geometric detail, invisible to the casual observer but unmistakable to those who understand the language of orbits, had profound implications for what this object was and where it came from. An object in an elliptical orbit is a member of our solar system bound by the sun's gravity like a dog on a very long leash, destined to return again and again no matter how far it wanders. But an object on a hyperbolic path is a visitor, a transient, a stranger passing through. It is moving too fast to be captured by the sun's gravity, carrying with it a velocity that speaks of origins elsewhere. It would swing by once, and only once, before continuing its journey back into the void from which it came. It was an interstellar object, a piece of another star system that had somehow found its way to ours, and so its identity shifted. Like an immigrant receiving new papers, it became 3I Atlas. The I for interstellar, a designation that placed it in the rarest category of objects we have ever observed. It was no longer just another comet from the Oort cloud, that vast spherical shell of icy bodies that surrounds our solar system like a cosmic snow globe. It was an alien in the truest sense of the word, a stranger from another land, another star, carrying with it information about places we have never seen and may never visit. The fact that it was only the third such object ever detected made it precious, a rare opportunity to study material from beyond our solar system without having to send a probe on a journey that would take tens of thousands of years. Let's picture it now, as it moved through the outer reaches of our solar system, somewhere in the cold darkness beyond the orbit of Jupiter. In our mind's eye, we can see it as it truly was, a dark, irregular chunk of ice and rock, perhaps a few kilometers across, about the size of a small mountain. For millions of years, possibly billions, it has been in a deep freeze at a temperature just a few degrees above absolute zero, that theoretical limit where all molecular motion ceases. Its journey through the interstellar medium has been one of profound silence and cold, a kind of cosmic sensory deprivation that would drive any conscious being to madness. But Atlas was not conscious, at least not in any way we understand consciousness. It was patient in the way that only inanimate objects can be patient, enduring without suffering, waiting without anticipation. But now things are changing in ways that would be imperceptible to us but are dramatic on the molecular level. The sun, though still distant, still just a particularly bright star among many, is now a palpable presence. Its light, even out here in what we consider the cold outer solar system, is 1,000,000 times brighter than the average starlight of the galaxy. And with that light comes warmth, not warmth as we would feel it. Not the warmth of a summer day or a cozy fire, but warmth in the cosmic sense. A gentle, almost imperceptible heating of the comet's surface from near absolute zero to merely incredibly cold. A few degrees of difference, but enough to stir the ancient sleeping chemistry within. The frozen gases that have been locked in solid form for eons begin to respond to this warmth. Frozen carbon monoxide and nitrogen, the most volatile of the ices, begin to sublimate at temperatures that would still freeze our breath solid. They transform directly from solid to gas, skipping the liquid phase entirely because the pressure is too low for liquids to exist. This sublimation is not uniform or gentle. It happens in tiny violent eruptions as pockets of gas build up pressure beneath the surface and then burst through, creating jets that spray gas and dust into space like geysers on a frozen world. These jets carry with them dust and smaller ice grains that were trapped within the nucleus, embedded there when the comet first formed in some distant stellar nursery. This is the birth of the coma, that fuzzy glowing halo that gives the comet its classic appearance and its name. Comet comes from the Greek word for hairy star. The coma is a temporary atmosphere, a shroud of the comet's own making, extending for thousands, sometimes millions of kilometers around the solid nucleus. From Earth, through our telescopes, we see this coma as a soft, ethereal glow, a ghostly presence against the black velvet of space. It is beautiful in its delicacy, like seeing breath on a cold night made visible on a cosmic scale. It is the comet's exhalation, its sigh after a long silence, made visible by the sunlight that illuminates the gas and dust like stage lighting revealing an actor. And as Atlas gets closer to the sun, this breath becomes deeper, more rapid, as more and more material is shed in response to the increasing warmth. The sunlight does more than just warm the comet. It also pushes on the cloud of gas and dust, creating the comet's most distinctive feature, its tail. Or rather, its tails, for a comet typically has two. The dust tail is made of the larger particles, microscopic grains of rock and ice that are pushed gently by the pressure of sunlight itself. Photons, those massless particles of light, carry momentum, and when they strike the dust grains, they impart a tiny push. These dust grains are relatively massive compared to individual gas molecules, so they respond slowly to this pressure, tending to follow along the comet's orbital path while being gradually pushed away from the sun. This creates a broad, curved, and often yellowish tail that can stretch for millions of kilometers. It is a trail of breadcrumbs on a cosmic scale, marking the path the comet has taken through the inner solar system. The ion tail, or gas tail, is a different beast entirely. It is made of gas molecules that have been ionized, stripped of electrons, by the sun's intense ultraviolet radiation. These ions are electrically charged, and this makes them vulnerable to the solar wind, that constant stream of charged particles flowing out from the sun at speeds of hundreds of kilometers per second. The solar wind is much more powerful than the gentle pressure of sunlight, and it grabs these ions and carries them directly away from the sun, regardless of the comet's direction of travel. This creates a long, straight, and often blue-glowing tail that can stretch for tens of millions of kilometers, a cosmic windsock pointing directly away from our star, showing us the invisible currents of the solar wind. So, as 3 Atlas journeyed inward, it grew these ghostly appendages, transforming from a dark, inert rock into a luminous, dynamic, celestial creature. It was a spectacle of quiet, natural beauty, the kind of transformation that reminds us that the universe is not a static painting, but a living, breathing system of endless change and movement. But there were oddities in this transformation, subtle anomalies that caught the attention of astronomers and added layers to the mystery. When astronomers traced its path backward in time, using the precise measurements of its position and velocity, they found something intriguing. Its orbit was remarkably similar to the orbit of another comet, the Great Comet of 1844, a spectacular visitor that had graced Earth's skies nearly 2 centuries ago. The similarity was too close to be mere coincidence. The orbital parameters matched in ways that suggested a deeper connection. This led to a fascinating hypothesis that added another layer to the already complex story. Perhaps Atlas and the 1844 comet were fragments of a much larger parent body that had broken apart thousands of years ago far out in the depths of space, long before either fragment approached the inner solar system. Imagine that scenario for a moment. A colossal, primordial object, perhaps hundreds of kilometers in diameter, a small world unto itself, wandering the outer reaches of our solar system or perhaps even interstellar space. Something happened. A close gravitational encounter with a massive planet like Jupiter, an impact with another object, or perhaps just internal stresses building up over millions of years, and this ancient traveller fractured. It didn't explode violently, but rather came apart like a loosely bound collection of smaller pieces, each inheriting slightly different velocities and trajectories from the breakup. The Great Comet of 1844 was one sibling in this cosmic family, arriving first to put on its spectacular show for our ancestors. And 3 Atlas, arriving nearly 2 centuries later, was another sibling, following a similar but not identical path through the solar system. But this familial connection presented a profound contradiction that made astronomers scratch their heads. If Atlas was part of a family from our own Oort cloud, a native of our solar system, why was its trajectory hyperbolic? Why did it appear to be an interstellar visitor when its genealogy suggested it was a local? The answer could lie in the chaotic, complex gravitational dance of the solar system, where small differences in initial conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes. The gravitational nudge that sent Atlas inward from its distant home could have been so precisely calibrated, whether by chance or by design, that it gave the comet just enough energy to achieve escape velocity. Or perhaps the measurements themselves had some uncertainty. Atlas was, after all, on the very cusp between being bound and unbound, blurring the line between a native and a foreigner in a way that seemed almost deliberately ambiguous. This ambiguity is part of its mystery, part of its charm, part of what makes it such a compelling subject for contemplation. It was a traveller with a confused passport, a wanderer whose papers didn't quite add up. It had the trajectory of an outsider, but the family history of a local. It was a ghost from our own cosmic attic that had somehow learned to fly like a stranger, or perhaps a stranger that had learned to disguise itself as a familiar face. The uncertainty in its origin story mirrors the larger uncertainties in our understanding of the cosmos. We think we know where things come from. We think we understand the categories and classifications, but then something like Atlas comes along and reminds us that nature doesn't always fit neatly into our boxes. And then there was its brightness, that dramatic and unexpected flare-up that captured the world's attention. As it passed the orbit of Mars and continued its inward journey, it began to brighten at an astonishing rate, far faster than the mathematical models predicted, far faster than a typical comet should. The brightness of a comet usually follows a predictable pattern based on its distance from the Sun. Closer means warmer. Warmer means more sublimation. More sublimation means more gas and dust in the coma to reflect sunlight. But Atlas was breaking the rules, brightening as if someone had turned up a cosmic dimmer switch much faster than the usual rate. It was as if a switch had been flipped somewhere deep in its structure, as if some threshold had been crossed that triggered a dramatic change in its behaviour. Astronomers watched with growing excitement as the brightness continued to increase day by day. Projections and calculations suggested something remarkable. Atlas could become as bright as the planet Venus in our sky, that brilliant evening or morning star that has captivated humans since the dawn of consciousness. It might become visible even in twilight, competing with the sun's lingering or approaching light. An interstellar comet, or at least a comet on an escape trajectory, visible to the naked eye, it would have been a once-in-a-generation event, perhaps once in several generations. a direct visible connection to the world beyond our sun, something our ancestors would have seen as a portent, an omen, a message from the gods. Even in our scientific age, it would have been a profound reminder of our place in a larger cosmos. A visitor from beyond making itself known to anyone who simply looked up. But the ghostly traveller was fickle, as mysterious in its behaviour as in its origins. The dramatic brightening was not a steady climb toward glory, but a flare-up before the end, like a candle flaring bright just before it gutters out. Just as it reached its peak brightness, just as astronomers and sky watchers around the world were preparing for the show of a lifetime, it began to fade. The increase stopped, plateaued like a mountain climber pausing to catch their breath at altitude, and then reversed. The light that had been growing stronger day by day began to dim, slowly at first, then more rapidly. The show was over before it had truly begun, the curtain falling while the audience was still finding their seats, the promise unfulfilled. Observations from the most powerful telescopes on Earth and in space soon confirmed what many astronomers had begun to suspect. The Hubble Space Telescope, that veteran observer that has shown us so many wonders of the cosmos, turned its unblinking eye toward Atlas and revealed the truth. The nucleus, the solid heart of the comet that had survived the long journey through interstellar space or from the outer solar system, was no longer a single object. The images were definitive. Where once there had been one bright point of light, there were now several, each with its own small coma, like a family of ghosts where once there had been a single spirit. The comet had broken apart, fragmented into multiple pieces that were slowly drifting away from each other. The Hubble images from April 2020 were particularly poignant, capturing the fragmentation process in unprecedented detail. In one image from April 20th, two main fragments are visible, still relatively bright and compact, like twins holding hands as they face an uncertain future. In another image taken just 3 days later, on April 23rd, those fragments have themselves disintegrated into a multitude of smaller, fainter pieces, a cascade of fragmentation that spoke of structural failure at every level. The image is haunting in its beauty and its implications. It looks like a string of faint pearls, a celestial necklace that has broken and scattered its beads across the darkness. The pieces are all enveloped in a shared diaphanous cloud of dust, a ghostly shroud that seems to mourn the loss of the parent body, a cosmic funeral veil drifting through space. The astronomers who studied these images noted something important about the fragmentation process, how remarkably gentle it appeared to be. The fragments were drifting apart very slowly, at walking speed, the kind of velocity you might achieve on a leisurely stroll through a park on a quiet evening. This was not a violent, explosive event like a bomb detonating. There were no high-speed chunks flying off in all directions. It was a quiet, passive disaggregation, a coming apart at the seams rather than a shattering. The comet simply came undone, like an ancient tapestry finally giving way to time, threads separating after eons of being woven together. The bonds that had held it together for perhaps millions of years through the long, cold night of interstellar space or the outer solar system finally gave way in the gentle warmth of our sun. And here, in the quiet contemplation of this gentle disintegration, our central question returns with renewed relevance, viewed through a different lens. Was this fragility a flaw in the comet's structure, or was it a feature deliberately designed into it? The question seems almost absurd at first. Why would anything be designed to fall apart? But the more we think about it, the more intriguing the possibility becomes. Consider the perspective of a natural object first. To survive the journey to the inner solar system, whether from the Oort cloud or from another star, a comet needs a certain amount of structural integrity. It needs to hold together against the gentle but persistent tug of gravity from passing stars, the occasional impact with interstellar dust grains, the slow erosion of cosmic rays. To then fall apart so easily when approaching a star seems like a fundamental failure of that structural integrity. It's like building a boat that can survive years at sea only to have it dissolve the moment it reaches port. But now, let's put on our speculative hats again and consider the possibility of deliberate design. What if the goal was not to survive the solar encounter intact? What if the entire purpose of the journey was to arrive and then disperse? Think about it from an engineering perspective. If you wanted to deliver something to a solar system, what would be the most efficient distribution method? A single impact on a single planet would be incredibly difficult to achieve, requiring precise navigation across interstellar distances, and it would deliver your payload to only one small location in a vast system. But if you designed your vessel to fragment upon arrival, to gently break apart in the inner solar system where the planets reside, you would achieve a much wider distribution. Imagine an interstellar probe designed not to land on a planet, but to seed an entire solar system with something, perhaps with the basic building blocks of life, those complex organic molecules that we know can survive in space. This is the theory of directed panspermia, the idea that life, or the ingredients for it, might be deliberately spread between star systems by intelligent beings. It's not a new idea. It was seriously proposed by Nobel laureate Francis Crick and chemist Leslie Orgel in the 1970s as a possible explanation for the origin of life on Earth. They suggested that the uniformity of the genetic code across all life on Earth, the fact that all living things use the same basic molecular machinery, might be evidence that life here had a single source, possibly an extraterrestrial one. If you wanted to implement such a program of directed panspermia, if you wanted to give life the best chance of taking hold in a new solar system, what would be the optimal strategy? You wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket with a single impact. Instead, you would want to scatter your seeds widely, like a dandelion dispersing its seeds on the wind. You would want to create a cloud of organic material that would drift through the inner solar system for years, decades, perhaps centuries, increasing the chances that some of it would find its way to a suitable environment, a warm planet with liquid water, a moon with subsurface oceans, even the surface of asteroids where it might wait for future collection and dispersal. The fragments of Atlas, each a smaller version of the original, would then continue on slightly different orbits, spreading through the solar system like seeds from a pod that has finally opened after a long journey. The dust and gas released in the fragmentation process would spread even further, blown by the solar wind and the pressure of sunlight, creating a vast cloud of material that Earth and other planets might pass through in their orbits. It's a beautiful thought that the disintegration we witnessed was not a death but a birth, not an ending but a beginning, not a failure but the successful completion of a mission that began millions of years ago in another part of the galaxy. Let's explore another possibility, another lens through which to view this gentle fragmentation. What if the object was not a seed pod but a probe, a technological artifact designed to gather information about our solar system? This brings us to the concept of von Neumann probes, hypothetical self-replicating spacecraft that could explore the galaxy by making copies of themselves using materials found in each star system they visit. Such probes would need to be incredibly sophisticated, capable of mining asteroids, refining materials, and constructing new versions of themselves, all without direct control from their creators, who might be millions of years dead by the time the probe reaches its destination. But perhaps the probe doesn't need to be that complex. Perhaps it's designed for a simpler mission, observation and reporting. Imagine a civilization that wants to survey the galaxy, to catalogue star systems and planets, to search for signs of life or suitable worlds for future colonization. Sending fast, powered probes would be enormously expensive in terms of energy and resources, but sending slow, patient probes that look like comets, that use the natural dynamics of stellar systems to tour them, would be much more efficient. The probe would hibernate during its interstellar journey, conserving energy, protected by its shell of ice from radiation and micrometeorite impacts. Upon entering a new star system, the warmth of the star would provide the energy needed to activate its systems, to power up its sensors and begin collecting data. The brightening of Atlas could have been this activation process, the probe coming online after millions of years of dormancy. The rapid increase in brightness might not have been just sublimating ice, but also the probe extending sensors, deploying equipment, perhaps even beginning some kind of transmission, and the fragmentation. Perhaps that was not a structural failure, but a deliberate deployment of smaller sub-probes, each tasked with a specific mission. One fragment might be designed to study the solar wind, another to analyze the interplanetary magnetic field, a third to observe the planets from different angles. The gentle separation of the fragments, their slow drift apart, would be exactly what you'd expect from a controlled deployment, rather than a catastrophic failure. In this scenario, what we interpreted as death was actually birth. What looked like destruction was actually construction. The mothership, its long journey complete, releases its children to begin their work, each fragment a specialized instrument designed for a specific purpose. The fading light is not a death rattle, but the quiet hum of a new phase of the mission beginning, a transition from travel mode to exploration mode. The comet didn't die in our solar system, it transformed, evolved, adapted to its new environment in exactly the way it was designed to do eons ago. These are just stories, of course, gentle what-ifs to ponder as you drift deeper into relaxation. They are not scientific theories with evidence to support them, but philosophical possibilities that arise from the quiet spaces in the data, from the things we don't know and may never know for certain. We don't know why Atlas brightened so suddenly and dramatically. We don't know exactly why it disintegrated so gently, so gracefully. We don't know for sure if it was from our solar system or another, and if it was from another, we don't know which one or how long its journey took. And in that not knowing, there is a freedom to wonder, to imagine, to dream about possibilities that science has not yet confirmed or denied. Picture the scene again in your mind's eye, but now with these new possibilities colouring your perception. The string of ghostly fragments, drifting silently through the dark, each one a tiny, self-contained world with its own story to tell. They are not debris from a catastrophe, but participants in a cosmic dance, each moving to its own rhythm while maintaining a connection to the others. They are a family now, a flotilla, where once there was only a solitary traveller. They are moving away from us, back toward the outer solar system, but their journey is far from over. They will continue to travel through our system for years to come, slowly fading from our instrument's ability to detect them, slowly spreading apart until they are no longer recognizably related, but never truly disappearing. Perhaps one day, in the not-too-distant future, our descendants will have the technology to catch up with one of these fragments. Perhaps they will send a probe to rendezvous with one, to land on its surface, to drill into its heart, and to finally read the story written in its ancient ice. What will they find? The mundane chemistry of a natural comet, confirmation that Atlas was exactly what it appeared to be, or something more, the fossilized remnants of ancient microbes that travelled between the stars, the faint traces of technology so advanced it is almost indistinguishable from nature, a message encoded at the molecular level waiting for someone with the right key to decrypt it. We may never know the answer, and that uncertainty is not a failure but a gift. Tonight the mystery is more comforting than any answer could be. The fading whisper of Atlas is more soothing than a clear voice shouting revelations. It allows our minds to be soft, to be open, to be at peace with the vast and beautiful uncertainty of it all. As you listen to the silence between these words, imagine you can hear that whisper, the faint, fading echo of a traveller who came from far away, who graced our skies briefly with its presence, and who gently, gracefully, became a part of the quiet darkness once more, leaving us with questions that may take generations to answer, if they can be answered at all. Let us now allow ourselves to drift even deeper into the heart of our gentle question, moving from observation to contemplation, from what we saw to what it might mean. let us move from observing the traveller to contemplating its possible origins, its potential purpose. The reasons why something like Atlas might exist at all? We will tread softly here, in the realm of imagination and possibility, guided by the faint echoes of what might be an ancient design, a purpose that transcends the mere mechanics of orbits and sublimation. There is no need for proof in this space we're creating together, no burden of evidence that must be met. There is only the quiet, open space of wonder, the permission to think thoughts that peer might dismiss as too speculative, too imaginative, too hopeful. What if 3i Atlas was in some way manufactured? The word itself seems jarring when applied to something that looks so natural, so much like countless other comets we've observed. What if its journey was not an accident of gravity, a random ejection from some distant star system, but an act of intention, a deliberate voyage planned eons ago? The thought itself feels immense, like trying to imagine the mind of a being that thinks in geological time, that plans in astronomical units, that measures success in the survival of information across millions of years. But let's break it down into smaller, more gentle possibilities, each one a stepping stone across the river of imagination. Let's listen for the echoes, however faint, of a plan that might be written in ice and rock rather than metal and silicon. The first echo we might hear is one of resilience, of endurance beyond what chance alone might provide. For an object to travel between the stars, it must endure a journey of unimaginable hardship, not the dramatic hardship of stellar explosions or black hole encounters, but the slow, patient hardship of existing in an environment that seems designed to erode everything to nothing. The space between stars, the interstellar medium, is not the perfect vacuum we sometimes imagine. It is a tenuous soup of gas and dust, so thin that calling it a soup seems generous, perhaps more like the memory of a soup, the faintest suggestion of matter in an otherwise empty bowl. But even this near-nothingness has substance, has effect, has the power to slowly destroy. Most importantly, interstellar space is filled with high-energy cosmic rays, those atomic nuclei that have been accelerated to near the speed of light by supernovae and other cataclysmic events. They are the universe's stray bullets, invisible and relentless, piercing through matter like needles through fabric. Over millions of years, a constant bombardment by these particles can be incredibly destructive, breaking down complex molecules, shattering crystalline structures, degrading any material not specifically designed to withstand them. It's like being sandblasted, but instead of sand, it's subatomic particles, and instead of seconds, it's eons. A natural comet survives this journey through sheer bulk and simplicity. Its outer layers are slowly eroded, sacrificed to protect the pristine ice deep within its core. It is a passive, brute force method of survival, like wearing armor so thick that even though the outer layers are destroyed, the inner core remains protected. But what if the resilience of Atlas was not just lucky chance but part of a deliberate design? What if the composition and structure of this object were specifically chosen to maximize its chances of surviving the interstellar void? Imagine builders, ancient cosmic engineers who understand materials science at a level we can barely conceive, selecting the perfect blend of water ice, carbon dioxide ice, methane, ammonia, and silicate dust. Not just a random agglomeration thrown together by the chaos of a forming solar system, but a carefully layered structure, each layer serving a specific purpose. An outer layer designed to ablate, to flake away in a controlled manner, carrying with it the damage from cosmic rays like a snake shedding damaged skin. Beneath that, a denser, more robust layer of ice, perhaps with a different crystalline structure that makes it more resistant to radiation, a secondary shield that would only be exposed after millions of years when the outer layer had been worn away. And at the very heart, protected by these multiple barriers, a core that contains what? The payload, the message, the seed, the purpose of the entire journey. This is not a technology of metals and circuits, of the kind we build in our factories and laboratories. It is a technology of materials science pushed to its absolute limit, of chemistry and physics applied with a wisdom that comes from thinking in cosmic time. It is the kind of technology a civilization that measures its existence, not in centuries, but in the lifetime of stars might develop. They would not fight the universe with exotic materials and complex machinery that would inevitably fail. They would use the universe's own materials and processes to achieve their goals, working with the grain of cosmic forces rather than against them. The perfect disguise for an artificial object is to make it nearly indistinguishable from a natural one, to use the camouflage of normalcy to hide extraordinary purpose. The second echo we might hear is one of purpose, of intention that transcends the random walks of natural objects. If it was built, why? What could motivate a civilization to construct such a thing, to invest resources in a project whose completion they would never see, whose success or failure might not be known for millions of years? Let's return to the idea of panspermia, but let's call it directed panspermia, to distinguish it from the natural process. This is the hypothesis that a civilization might intentionally seed other star systems with life, not through conquest or colonization, but through the gentle gift of biological potential. Why would they do this? Perhaps it is a form of cosmic altruism, a desire to spread the gift of life throughout the galaxy, to ensure that the miracle of consciousness and complexity doesn't remain confined to a single world that might be destroyed by a supernova, an asteroid impact, or the slow death of its star. Perhaps it is a form of self-preservation on the grandest scale, a way to ensure that their biological legacy, if not their civilization itself, survives the eventual heat death of their own star. Or perhaps it is simply the ultimate expression of life's fundamental drive to reproduce, to spread, to fill every available niche, but elevated to a cosmic scale where the niches are entire star systems and the reproductive cycle takes millions of years. If you were to undertake such a project, a comet like Atlas would be the perfect vessel. Its icy heart is a natural cryogenic capsule, preserving organic molecules and even potentially dormant microbes for millions of years at temperatures that stop all biological processes, that freeze time itself for any life contained within. Complex organic molecules, the building blocks of proteins and DNA, can survive in ice for enormous periods or are protected from radiation by the bulk of frozen material around them. The gentle fragmentation upon arrival in a new solar system is the perfect dispersal mechanism, spreading the biological payload across a wide area, increasing the chances that some of it will find suitable conditions for reactivation and growth. The probe would not need to be alive in any conventional sense. It would not need computers or machinery or any technology we would recognize. It would simply be a carrier, a cosmic bottle containing a message written in the language of biology. The message would not be words or mathematics or images, but DNA or its equivalent, the complex, beautiful architecture of amino acids and proteins that encode the instructions for life. The fragmentation of Atlas, viewed through this lens, was not its death, but the uncorking of the bottle, the release of its precious cargo into our solar system, where it might find new shores on which to wash up, new worlds on which to take root. Now, let's consider another purpose, another echo of design that resonates on a different frequency. The idea of a probe, but not a biological one, an informational one. Imagine a civilization wanting to explore the galaxy, to learn about other stars and their planets, to catalogue the cosmic neighbourhood. Sending fast, powered probes is one way to do this. But it requires enormous energy and complex technology that must survive not just the journey, but also function after millions of years of dormancy. A slower, more patient approach might be more robust, more likely to succeed, even if individual probes fail. What if Atlas was the final stage of a much larger system, a hierarchical exploration strategy that uses the natural dynamics of star systems as its transportation network? Imagine a mother probe that arrives in the cold, outer reaches of a star system, in its Oort cloud where comets naturally reside. This mother probe would be more complex, perhaps powered by the slow decay of radioactive isotopes, capable of limited manufacturing using the abundant cometary material around it. It uses this material to build smaller, simpler subprobes, each one little more than a sensor package and a simple transmitter, encased in a protective shell of ice and rock. They are, for all intents and purposes, artificial comets, indistinguishable from natural ones except for what lies at their hearts. The mother probe then launches these children into the inner solar system, using gravity assists and careful timing to send them on trajectories that will take them past interesting targets. Planets with atmospheres, moons with subsurface oceans, asteroid belts rich in metals and organic compounds. Each subprobe is programmed with a simple mission: observe, record, and report. This subprobe we see as 3i Atlas makes its journey inward, powered down, dormant, indistinguishable from any other comet. As it nears the Sun, the increasing heat provides the energy it needs, not through solar panels or nuclear reactors, but through the simple thermodynamics of phase change. The sublimating ice could drive simple mechanical or chemical processes, storing energy that can be used to power instruments, to record data, to prepare for the mission's culmination. And then, its mission complete, what does it do? It needs to send its data back to the mother probe waiting in the outer system. But a small probe, millions of kilometers from its parent, would need a powerful antenna and a huge power source to transmit a conventional radio signal that could be detected at such distances. There is a more elegant solution, one that uses the physics of the solar system itself as the communication medium. What if the fragmentation itself was the signal? This is a beautiful and melancholy thought, that the breakup of Atlas was not a failure, but a form of communication we don't yet recognize. Perhaps the timing of the fragmentation, the pattern of the breakup, the specific distribution of fragments, all encode information. The mother probe, watching from the distant Oort cloud with instruments we can't imagine, would not see the faint optical light of the fragmenting comet, but it might detect other signatures, changes in the solar wind as it interacts with the expanding cloud of gas and dust, variations in the magnetic field, the specific spectral signatures of sublimating ices that encode data in their molecular ratios. The fragmentation was the probe's final report, a single, dramatic gesture that said, "Mission complete. Here is what I found," with the data encoded in the physics of its own dissolution. This is, of course, deeply speculative, a castle built on clouds of possibility rather than the firm ground of evidence. But it is a speculation that resonates with a certain kind of cosmic elegance, a design philosophy of profound minimalism and efficiency. Why build a complex transmitter that might fail after millions of years when you can use the object's own destruction as the message? It is a technology that transcends technology, a solution that uses the universe's own processes as its mechanism. It is beautiful in its simplicity and heartbreaking in its finality, a probe that fulfills its purpose by ceasing to exist, a messenger that becomes the message itself. These echoes of an ancient design are faint, so faint that we might be imagining them entirely. They are not found in the hard data, but in the patterns and possibilities that emerge when we look at the data from different angles, when we ask what if instead of what is. The unusual orbit that places Atlas right on the boundary between bound and unbound, as if carefully calibrated to spend the maximum time in our solar system, while still maintaining plausible deniability as an interstellar object. The sudden brightening that might have been activation rather than mere sublimation. The gentle fragmentation that looked more like deployment than destruction. Each one, on its own, can be explained by natural processes. But together they paint a picture. They sketch the faint outline of something that feels different. Not alien in the science fiction sense of the word, but alien in the deeper sense, something that operates according to principles and timescales that we are only beginning to understand. As you rest here, letting these ideas flow through your mind like water through your fingers, don't try to grasp them too tightly. Let them be what they are, possibilities, not certainties. Imagine the builders, if builders there were, a civilization so old that our entire history would be to them what a single day is to us. A civilization that has watched stars be born and die, that has seen the galaxy rotate through significant fractions of its orbit, that understands patience not as a virtue but as the fundamental principle of existence. What would they be like? Would they even be biological beings like us, with bodies and lifespans and mortality? Or would they be something else entirely, machine intelligences that have transcended their biological origins, or perhaps something we don't have words for, a form of consciousness that exists in the quantum foam of space-time itself, or in the dark matter that makes up most of the universe's mass? We cannot know, and perhaps that's for the best. The mystery is more beautiful than any answer could be, but we can feel a sense of connection to them if they exist, through the simple act of asking the question. In our own desire to explore, to create, to leave a legacy that outlasts our brief lives, we see a reflection of their possible motives. Our pyramids and cathedrals, our space probes and radio messages, our time capsules and genetic banks. They are our own attempts at an ancient design, our own efforts to build something that survives, that speaks to the future, that says, we were here, and we mattered. We're just beginning to learn the language of deep time, the grammar of the cosmos, the syntax of survival on astronomical scales. Perhaps 3i Atlas was a lesson, a demonstration, a gentle hint about different ways of thinking about time, space, and purpose. A whisper from the deep suggesting that the universe is not just a stage for our own brief story, but a vast library of countless others, written in languages we don't yet recognize, languages of ice and dust, of orbital dynamics and molecular chemistry, of patterns that play out over millions of years rather than the decades of a human life. And we are just now, quietly, hesitantly, beginning to learn how to read these stories, to recognize that communication might not require radio waves or laser beams, but might be encoded in the very structure and behavior of objects that drift through our cosmic neighborhood. Let us now turn our attention to what we actually know, or what we think we know based on the data we've collected. Let us sit with the observations themselves, the faint whispers of light and motion that travelled across millions of kilometres to reach our instruments. We will not treat this data as a set of cold, hard facts that close off possibilities, but as a collection of clues in a cosmic mystery, fragments of a story that we're trying to piece together with most of the pages missing. And we will pay special attention to the silence between the clues, the gaps in our knowledge, the things we cannot measure or detect, for it is in this silence that the deepest wonder resides, where imagination can flourish without contradicting what we know to be true. When astronomers study a distant object like a comet, they are detectives working with the most circumstantial of evidence, trying to reconstruct a story from the faintest of whispers. Their primary tool is light, not just visible light that our eyes can see, but the entire electromagnetic spectrum from radio waves to gamma rays. By capturing the faint light from 3i Atlas and spreading it out into a spectrum, like sunlight through a prism creating a rainbow, they can look for the chemical fingerprints of different elements and molecules. Each type of atom and molecule absorbs and emits light at specific wavelengths, creating a unique pattern like a barcode that identifies its presence. It is a form of remote chemistry, a way of analysing the composition of an object without ever touching it, like identifying a flower by its scent carried on the wind from a distant garden. The spectrum of Atlas was in many ways unsurprising, even disappointingly normal. It showed the expected signatures of molecules commonly found in comets throughout our solar system. Cyanogen, a simple compound of carbon and nitrogen that creates a greenish glow; diatomic carbon, pairs of carbon atoms that emit a characteristic green light, and various other simple molecules that form when ultraviolet light from the sun breaks apart more complex molecules in the comet's ice. The dust in its coma and tail appeared to be typical silicate dust, the same kind of material that forms the rocky bases of planets like Earth, made of silicon, oxygen, and various metals in combinations that have been seen in countless other comets. In its chemical makeup, Atlas looked like a perfectly ordinary comet, the kind that astronomers have been studying for centuries. There were no flashing neon signs saying made in Alpha Centauri or product of Vega. There were no spectral lines of exotic, unknown elements that would immediately mark it as foreign. The data spoke of normalcy, of familiarity, of belonging. It whispered, "I am one of you. I am made of the same star stuff as everything else in this neighborhood. I have no exotic chemistry to reveal my origins." And yet this normalcy is, in itself, a kind of mystery that deepens rather than resolves our questions. If it was truly an interstellar visitor, born in a different star system with potentially different elemental abundances, different formation conditions, different histories of stellar processing, we might expect it to have a slightly different chemical dialect. Stars vary in their composition based on when and where they formed in the galaxy, and this variation should be reflected in the objects that form around them. The comet Tuohy-Borisov, our second confirmed interstellar visitor, did show some subtle chemical peculiarities, particularly an unusually high abundance of carbon monoxide compared to water, suggesting it formed in a different environment than our local comets. It had a slightly different flavour, like tea from a different region with its own distinctive taste. Atlas did not show these differences. It tasted like home, like something that could have formed in our own solar system billions of years ago. This could mean several things, each with different implications for our mystery. The simplest explanation, the one that requires the fewest new assumptions and therefore the one that most scientists would favour, is that it wasn't an interstellar object after all. Perhaps it was a native of our own Oort cloud, that vast spherical shell of icy bodies that surrounds our solar system like a cosmic snow globe, thrown onto a strange hyperbolic-looking orbit by a gravitational quirk, a chance encounter with a massive planet or a passing star that gave it just enough energy to achieve escape velocity. This is the safe, conservative interpretation of the data, the one that keeps everything within the bounds of the known and familiar, or it could mean that the star system where Atlas was born was chemically very similar to our own, perhaps because it formed from the same giant molecular cloud that gave birth to our Sun. Stars are not born in isolation but in clusters, sometimes hundreds or thousands, forming from the same vast cloud of gas and dust. These sibling stars would have very similar compositions, like children from the same family sharing genetic traits. Perhaps our Sun has a twin somewhere in the galaxy, born from the same stellar nursery billions of years ago, and Atlas is a messenger from that long-lost sibling, carrying news from a cousin solar system that shares our chemical heritage. Or, if we allow our minds to wander down the more speculative paths we've been exploring, it could be part of the design. If you wanted to build a probe that would blend in perfectly with the natural population of comets in any solar system it visited, you would build it from the most common, universally available materials in the galaxy: water, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. These are among the most abundant elements in the universe, cooked in the hearts of stars and scattered through space by supernovae. You would avoid exotic materials that might give away the artificial nature of your creation. You would make it look, taste, and behave as normally as possible, hiding in plain sight like a spy who has perfected the local accent. The lack of an anomaly becomes, in this light, an anomaly itself. Too perfect, too normal, like a painting that's so flawless it reveals itself as a forgery. Now let's consider its trajectory, the path it took through our solar system, which is perhaps the most puzzling aspect of all. As we've discussed, it was on a hyperbolic path, the mathematical signature of an object not bound to our Sun's gravity. But it was only barely hyperbolic, moving just slightly faster than the escape velocity needed to leave our solar system forever. The excess velocity was so small that it places Atlas right on the boundary between being a resident and a visitor, like someone standing in a doorway with one foot inside and one foot outside. This is strange and statistically unlikely. An object ejected from another star system with any significant force would likely be moving much faster relative to our Sun. The galaxy is full of stars moving in different directions at different speeds, and a comet ejected from one of these systems would typically retain some of that differential velocity. Think of it like this. Imagine you're on a moving train and you throw a ball out the window. The ball doesn't just have the velocity you gave it with your throw, it also has the velocity of the train. Similarly, a comet ejected from another star system should have not just the ejection velocity, but also the velocity of that star relative to our Sun. To arrive at our solar system with a velocity so finely tuned to our Sun's escape velocity is like throwing a ball from a moving train and having it land gently right at someone's feet. Possible, but requiring either incredible luck or incredible skill. Again, there are natural explanations for this fine-tuning. Perhaps Atlas was ejected from its home star very gently, with just enough velocity to escape but not much more. Perhaps it spent millions or billions of years wandering the galaxy and had a series of distant gravitational encounters with other stars that gradually bled off its initial velocity, slowing it down through a kind of cosmic friction until it was moving at just the right speed when it encountered our Sun. The galaxy is a complex, chaotic place where such coincidences, while rare, are not impossible. Given enough time and enough objects, even unlikely events become certain to occur somewhere. But the fine-tuning is intriguing in the context of our speculative scenario. If you were designing a probe to study a star system, you would want to send it with the lowest possible relative velocity to maximize the time it spends in that system. A high-speed flyby would give you only a brief glimpse, like trying to study a landscape from a speeding car. But a slow, gentle approach allows for extended observation, multiple planetary encounters, and a more thorough survey. The low hyperbolic excess velocity of Atlas is exactly what you would expect from a probe designed for a long, slow observational pass through our solar system, gathering data over months or years rather than days or weeks. And then there is the profound silence of the fragmentation event itself. We observed it break apart, we saw the pieces drift away, we measured their velocities and trajectories, but we have no data on the internal structure that failed, no information about what actually caused the breakup. We don't know if it was the increasing rotation rate causing centrifugal forces to overcome the weak gravity holding it together. We don't know if it was thermal stress from the uneven heating of the Sun and causing fractures to propagate through the ice. We don't know if it was tidal forces from the Sun's gravity pulling more strongly on the near side than the far side. We can build models and run simulations, creating virtual comets in our computers and subjecting them to various forces to see how they break apart. But we cannot know for sure what happened to the real Atlas. The evidence was destroyed in the act itself, like a crime scene that burns down before the investigators arrive. This is a profound silence in the data, a gap that cannot be filled no matter how many observations we make or how sophisticated our instruments become. We have the before, a single comet approaching the Sun. We have the after, multiple fragments drifting apart. But the crucial moment of transformation, the during when one became many, is lost to us. It happened too quickly, too far away, and with too little warning for us to capture it in detail. This is like arriving at the scene of an accident where the vehicles have completely vaporized, leaving only skid marks and scattered debris. We know something dramatic happened, but the mechanism, the exact sequence of events, remains a mystery. This is the nature of astronomy, the fundamental limitation of studying objects we cannot touch, cannot visit, cannot examine directly. We're always working with incomplete information, like trying to understand a conversation by listening to only every 10th word, or trying to read a book where most of the pages are blank. We are eavesdroppers on a cosmic conversation, catching only snippets and phrases, trying to construct meaning from fragments. We must learn to be comfortable with not knowing, to find peace in the questions rather than frustration. We must learn that the gaps in our knowledge are not failures but invitations, invitations to imagine, to hypothesize, to dream about what might be hiding in those silent spaces. The silence of the data is not a void, but a canvas upon which we can paint our possibilities. Science provides the frame, the constraints of physical law, the boundaries of what is possible. But within that frame, there is room for artistry, for poetry, for wonder. The data tells us that Atlas was comet-like in composition, that it followed a hyperbolic trajectory, that it fragmented as it approached the sun. These are the facts, the notes of the melody. But the silence between the notes, that's where the music really lives. The data tells us what happened. The silence invites us to wonder why. So, as you rest here, surrounded by the quiet of your room that mirrors the quiet of space, let the silence of the data be a comforting presence rather than a frustration. It is not an empty void that needs to be filled with noise and speculation. It is a space of potential, pregnant with possibilities that have not yet been born into fact. It is the pause between the inhale and the exhale, the moment of stillness between heartbeats, the quiet before dawn when anything might happen. The data tells us that Atlas was real, that it visited our solar system, that we witnessed its transformation. The silence asks, but what did it mean? The data tells us it came from somewhere else, or at least appeared to. The silence asks, but was that journey intentional? The data tells us it fell apart. The silence asks, but was that an ending or a beginning? There is no need to answer these questions tonight. There is no test tomorrow, no deadline for understanding. Just let the questions float in the silence like stars in the dark sky, points of light separated by vast distances of darkness, but somehow forming constellations of meaning when we step back and look at the whole picture. In our world, we're often pressured to have all the answers, to be certain, to know. But in the quiet depths of the cosmos, certainty is a rare and precious commodity. The norm is mystery. The standard is wonder. And there is a deep peace to be found in accepting that, in embracing the silence rather than trying to fill it with noise. Let yourself be part of that silence, part of that wonder. You are a being capable of contemplating these immense questions, of holding this beautiful uncertainty in your mind without needing to resolve it. This is a remarkable gift, perhaps unique in all the universe, the ability to wonder, to imagine, to find beauty in not knowing. The universe is not only strange and mysterious, but it has produced a consciousness capable of appreciating its strangeness and mystery. You are the means by which the universe contemplates itself, questions itself, wonders about itself. In the silence of the data about Atlas, we can hear the faint echo of our own cosmic purpose, to be the part of the universe that asks why, even when, especially when, there is no answer. Let us now drift away from the specific mystery of 3i Atlas and into a broader, more philosophical current. Let us contemplate a desire that seems to be woven into the very fabric of consciousness, whether human or perhaps otherwise, the desire for permanence, the drive to create something that outlasts us. This is not just about Atlas anymore, but about the universal impulse that might have led to its creation, if indeed it was created. We will explore why any civilization, anywhere in the universe, might strive to build something designed to survive cosmic time, and how that impulse connects to our own deepest drives and fears. Look around our own world, and you will see the evidence of this desire everywhere. We build monuments of stone and steel, pyramids that have stood for 5,000 years, great walls that stretch for thousands of kilometers, cathedrals that took centuries to complete and were built to last for millennia more. We carve our stories into rock faces, write them in books that we hope will survive. encode them in digital formats that we copy and recopy to prevent their loss. We create art, music, and poetry that we hope will speak to generations yet unborn, that will carry something of our essence forward into a future we will never see. We send golden records into space on our Voyager probes, time capsules to the stars carrying the sounds and images of Earth, messages in bottles thrown into the cosmic ocean. Why do we do this? Why does it matter so much to us that something of ourselves survives beyond our brief biological existence? At its heart, this is a rebellion against the transient nature of our own existence, against the fundamental unfairness of consciousness being housed in bodies that last less than a century while being able to conceive of eternity. We are born, we live, we love, we create, we die. Our lives are brief, flickering flames in the immense darkness of time, candles that burn brightly but are soon extinguished by the wind of entropy. And so, we build things that we hope will not flicker, will not be extinguished. We create vessels to carry our memory, our knowledge, our essence, forward into the future, long after the flame of our individual lives has gone out. It is a way of touching eternity, of reaching across the abyss of time to shake hands with the future. A way of whispering to tomorrow, we were here, we mattered. Remember us. This impulse is not just about ego or the fear of being forgotten. It is about connection, about the deep human need to be part of something larger than ourselves. It is a profound act of hope, the belief that there will be a future, that there will be beings in that future capable of understanding what we've left behind, and that those beings will be curious enough, empathetic enough, to want to know about us. When we bury a time capsule, we are not just preserving artifacts. We're sending a message of kinship across the years. We're extending a hand through time, hoping someone will be there to grasp it. We're saying, you're not alone. Others have walked this path before you. Here is what we learned, what we loved, what we feared, what we hoped. Now let us take this very human, very terrestrial impulse and project it onto a cosmic scale. Imagine a civilization that has existed for not just thousands, but millions of years. A civilization that has watched its own star evolve, that has perhaps moved from planet to planet as their worlds became uninhabitable, that has seen ice ages come and go like seasons. A civilization that understands deep time not as an abstract concept studied by scientists, but as a lived reality, the way we understand the passage of days and years. What would their blueprints for forever look like? How would they approach the challenge of creating something that lasts not just for millennia, but for eons? They would quickly realize that traditional approaches to permanence don't work on cosmic timescales. They would not build with marble or granite, because on a timescale of millions of years, even mountains erode to dust, ground down by wind and water and the patient work of chemistry. They would not encode their messages on metal plates or silicon chips, because in the harsh radiation of space such objects would be degraded, their information scrambled beyond recovery. They would understand that to build for eternity in a universe governed by entropy, you cannot fight against the natural processes of decay and dissolution. You must work with them, use them, make them part of your design. Their blueprints would be drawn with the ink of physics and chemistry, using the fundamental forces and materials of the universe as their medium. Their building materials would be the most stable and abundant substances in the cosmos, water ice, which makes up comets, and the moons of gas giants, carbon, the basis of all known life and one of the most versatile elements, silicates, which form the rocky foundations of planets. Their designs would be based on principles of redundancy, simplicity, and camouflage. They would create something that could endure the long, slow journey through interstellar space not by being strong in the conventional sense, but by being adaptable, renewable, self-healing. Not by standing out, but by blending in with the natural cosmic population. This is the philosophy that might lead to the creation of an object like 3i Atlas, if indeed it was created. It represents the ultimate expression of a desire for permanence, executed with a wisdom that comes from thinking in geological and astronomical time. It is not a monument in the traditional sense, not a statue or a building or even a spacecraft as we typically imagine them. It is something far more subtle and perhaps far more profound, a message that disguises itself as a natural phenomenon, a purpose that hides within what appears to be purposelessness. Let's imagine the design process, the meetings of minds that might have led to such a creation. The architects of this project would not be engineers in the conventional sense, but beings who combine the knowledge of astronomers, geologists, chemists, biologists, and philosophers. They would ask themselves fundamental questions. What is the most durable structure in the universe? A simple aggregation of common materials. What is the best protection against radiation? A thick mantle of ice that can be slowly sacrificed while protecting an inner core. What is the most efficient method of interstellar travel? Not powerful rockets that require enormous energy, but the slow, patient currents of galactic gravity that have been moving objects between stars for billions of years. So they would not build a starship in the way our science fiction imagines, sleek vessels of metal and technology. They would build, or perhaps modify, something that looks exactly like a comet. They would hollow out its core or embed their message deep within its structure, using the natural matrix of ice and rock as both vessel and shield. The blueprint would be one of elegant simplicity, a design that acknowledges the supremacy of cosmic forces and works with them rather than against them. It would be a design of profound humility, recognizing that the universe is far older and more powerful than any single civilization, and that the only way to leave a lasting mark is to make that mark indistinguishable from the natural patterns of the cosmos itself. What message would they seek to preserve in such a vessel? Perhaps it would be their entire cultural heritage, their history, their science, their art, their philosophy, encoded at a molecular level in complex polymers that could survive millions of years in the cold of space. Imagine a library of Alexandria written not in books but in the arrangement of atoms, waiting to be read by a civilization with the right key to decode it. Or perhaps the message would be biological, the genetic blueprints for life itself, preserved in a form that could survive the journey and reactivate under the right conditions. In this vision, the galaxy becomes a vast garden, and these cometary seeds are scattered by patient ancient gardeners who will never see the flowers that might eventually bloom, but who plant anyway, driven by the same impulse that makes us plant trees whose shade we will never enjoy. There is another possibility, more melancholy but no less profound. What if the blueprint is not a message of hope but an epitaph, a final testament from a dying civilization? Imagine a species facing its own extinction, their star dying, their world becoming uninhabitable, their technology insufficient to save them. They know their time is limited, measured perhaps in centuries or millennia rather than the eons they once thought they had. They cannot save themselves, but they can save something of themselves. They can create a monument that will outlast their civilization, their planet, even their star. They would pour all of their knowledge, all of their memories, all of their dreams and fears and loves into a single, durable vessel. Not a spacecraft designed to carry living passengers to a new home, but a cosmic ark designed to carry the ghost of their entire world into the future. They would launch it into the void with no specific destination in mind, no target star system, no planned arrival date. Its only purpose would be to wander, to endure, to be a silent, lonely gravestone for a civilization that once was. A message in a bottle thrown into the cosmic ocean, not with the expectation that it will ever be found, but simply because the act of throwing it, of creating it, of sending it on its way is itself a form of immortality. It is a statement that says, we may be gone, but the memory of us will travel the stars forever. We existed, we thought, we wondered, we loved, and now we entrust all of that to the universe itself. In this light, the journey of Three-Eye Atlas becomes incredibly poignant, taking on layers of meaning that transform it from a simple, astronomical event into a profound story of loss and hope. A lonely wanderer, carrying the legacy of a dead world through the darkness between stars. Its fragmentation in our solar system would not be a failure, but the final, tragic chapter of its story, the tomb itself crumbling to dust, releasing its contents to the solar wind. Perhaps those fragments, those tiny pieces we observe drifting apart, each carry a portion of that civilization's story. Perhaps the dust that was released, that cloud of particles that will drift through our solar system for years to come, contains molecular messages we don't yet know how to read, stories written in the arrangement of atoms, waiting for someone to develop the technology to decode them. As you lie here, floating in these contemplative thoughts, feeling the weight of cosmic time pressing gently on your consciousness, feel the weight of this desire for forever that runs through all conscious beings. Feel it in your own life, in the pictures you take to preserve moments that are already fading into memory, in the stories you tell your children or friends, in the love you share that you hope will ripple outward through time, touching lives you'll never know. These are all your own small blueprints for forever, your own attempts to build something that outlasts your physical presence. They are your way of weaving your thread into the great tapestry of existence, adding your own unique pattern to a design that has been growing since consciousness first emerged from matter. And feel a sense of connection, a sense of kinship with these hypothetical ancient builders, whether they existed or exist only in our imagination. Their motivations, scaled up to cosmic proportions, are fundamentally our motivations. The desire to be remembered, to leave a mark, to contribute something lasting to the universe. The hope for connection across impossible distances of space and time. The rebellion against oblivion. Against the idea that consciousness is a brief accident in a universe of unconscious matter and energy. We are not so different from them, these imagined architects of Atlas. We are all children of the cosmos, all temporary arrangements of matter that have somehow become aware of our own temporary nature, and we are all looking for a way to transcend that temporariness, to touch something eternal. The mystery of Three-Eye Atlas is not just a scientific puzzle to be solved with better telescopes and more sophisticated models. It is a philosophical mirror that reflects our own deepest concerns and highest aspirations. In asking, was it built? We're really asking questions about ourselves and our place in the universe. What is our legacy as a species? What will we leave behind when our sun begins to die billions of years from now? What are our own blueprints for forever? And how can we ensure they survive the patient erosion of cosmic time? Are we alone in asking these questions, or are we part of a galactic community of consciousness, each member struggling with the same fundamental challenge of how to make meaning last in a universe governed by entropy? There is a deep peace to be found in this perspective, a peace that comes from recognizing our small but significant place in a much larger story. It connects our individual lives, brief as they are, to the grand sweeping narrative of the universe itself. It suggests that our impulse to create, to preserve, to communicate, to remember, is not just a quirk of human psychology or an accident of evolution, but a fundamental expression of something deeper, perhaps consciousness itself rebelling against its own limitations, perhaps the universe developing a way to observe and remember itself through beings like us. The blueprints are all around us, written in every human endeavor to create something lasting. They're in the cave paintings of our ancestors, preserved for tens of thousands of years in darkness. They're in the pyramids of Egypt, the Great Wall of China, the cathedrals of Europe. They're in the books we write, the music we compose, the scientific theories we develop. They're in the Voyager golden records, now traveling through interstellar space, carrying the sounds and images of Earth to whoever might find them millions of years from now. They're in our DNA itself, the biological blueprint that has been copying and recopying itself for billions of years, preserving the instructions for life through countless generations. And perhaps, just perhaps, they're in objects like 3i Atlas, cosmic messages we're only beginning to learn how to recognize, let alone read. Whether Atlas was natural or artificial, whether it was a random piece of cosmic debris or a carefully designed vessel, it has succeeded in making us think about these profound questions. It has made us wonder about deep time, about interstellar travel, about the possibility of other intelligences in the universe. It has, in a sense, already fulfilled a purpose simply by existing and being observed, by making us contemplate possibilities we might not have considered otherwise. Let that thought be a gentle anchor for your drifting mind as you settle deeper into rest. You're part of a story that is far older and larger than you can fully comprehend. A story that began with the Big Bang and will continue until the last star fades to darkness. And your own life, your own consciousness, brief as it may be, is a precious and vital part of that story's unfolding. You are one of the ways the universe experiences itself, questions itself, remembers itself. The blueprints for forever are not just out there in space, carried by hypothetical alien probes or natural comets. They are within you, in your capacity to wonder, to imagine, to create, to love, to remember and be remembered. The question of whether Atlas was built to survive eternity may never be answered definitively, but in asking it, in contemplating it, in letting it expand our sense of what's possible, we are participating in something eternal ourselves, the eternal human quest to understand our place in the cosmos, to find meaning in the vast darkness, to leave something of ourselves behind when we're gone. We're all building our own vessels to carry meaning forward through time, whether they're made of ice and rock, paper and ink, or simply the memories we create in the minds of those we touch. We're all architects of forever in our own small ways, and that is perhaps the most beautiful and profound blueprint of all. Let us now use the gentle mystery of 3i Atlas as a lens through which to reimagine the entire cosmos. For so long, humanity has looked up at the night sky and seen a vast, cold emptiness, punctuated only by distant, lonely points of light, stars so far away that their light takes years, centuries, millennia to reach us. We have felt a sense of cosmic solitude, a feeling that we are a tiny, isolated island of life and consciousness in an ocean of sterile blackness, the only voices calling out in an infinite silence. But what if that perception is fundamentally wrong? What if the emptiness is not empty at all, but filled with stories we simply haven't learned to read yet? What if the universe is not silent, but is simply speaking in a language we're only just beginning to understand? A language not of words or radio waves, but of gravity and chemistry, of orbital dynamics and patient time, of objects that drift through the darkness carrying messages we don't yet recognize as messages. Imagine, as you lie here in the quiet of your room, that the space between the stars is not a void, but a place of constant transit, a vast network of slow, invisible rivers and currents that have been flowing since the galaxy was young. And drifting on these currents are countless travelers, most of them entirely natural, the ejected comets and asteroids from 1 billion star systems, the cosmic equivalent of seeds blown from dandelions, each one carrying information about its parent star, its home system, the conditions under which it formed. This is already remarkable enough, that the galaxy is constantly exchanging material between star systems, that atoms that formed in one stellar furnace might eventually become part of a planet orbiting another star entirely. But what if, mixed in with this natural traffic, there are other things? What if some of these travelers are not random debris but deliberate voyagers? What if the galaxy is crisscrossed with the paths of ancient probes, sleeping messengers, cosmic arcs, and biological seed pods? They would be dark, cold, and silent by necessity, conserving every bit of energy for their million-year journeys. They would not broadcast their presence with radio signals or flashing lights. Such displays would be wasteful and, more importantly, would mark them as artificial, potentially making them targets for collection or destruction by civilizations that might not welcome such visitors. Instead, they would be designed for stealth and patience, camouflaged as natural objects, following paths that seem random but might be carefully calculated. They are the quiet ones, the secret fleet, hiding in plain sight among the natural population of interstellar objects. We have only just in the last few years developed the technology to spot the occasional one that happens to pass through the bright, well-lit neighborhood of our inner solar system. Think about how remarkable this is. For all of human history until 2017, we had never knowingly observed an object from another star system. Then suddenly, in the span of just a few years, we've detected 3. Oumuamua with its strange elongated shape and peculiar acceleration, Borisov with its unusual chemistry, and Atlas with its dramatic brightening and gentle fragmentation. Are these anomalies, rare events that we're lucky to have witnessed? Or are they just the tip of an enormous iceberg, the first hints of a hidden galactic ecology that we're only now becoming aware of? Consider the statistics for a moment. Our detection capabilities are still primitive. We can only spot objects that come relatively close to the sun and are large enough to reflect detectable amounts of light. For every one we see, there might be thousands, millions, or even billions passing through the outer solar system that we never notice. They drift through the darkness beyond Neptune, beyond Pluto, through the vast spaces where our telescopes cannot yet see them, silent and invisible. We are like someone who has lived their entire life in a room with no windows and has just discovered a tiny pinhole in the wall. Peering through it, we catch fleeting glimpses of things moving outside, a shadow here, a flash of light there. We can't be sure what we're seeing, but we know one thing for certain. We are not alone in the house. The universe is far busier, far more dynamic, far more filled with travelers and messages and stories than we ever imagined. This thought should not be a source of anxiety or fear. These travelers, if they exist, are not invaders coming to conquer or destroy. They are not the aggressive aliens of our science fiction nightmares. They are part of a process that is ancient, slow and majestic, as natural to the galaxy as the formation of stars or the spiral of galaxies. They are as much a part of the cosmic landscape as nebulae and black holes. To fear them would be like a fish fearing the deep ocean currents it swims in, or a bird fearing the wind that carries it. They are simply part of the environment in which we exist, fellow travelers on the cosmic ocean, each following their own current toward their own destination. Let this new picture of the universe settle into your mind like sediment settling in still water, clarifying your vision of the cosmos. It is a universe not of emptiness, but of untold stories, each one written in the trajectory of an object, the composition of a comet, the timing of a fragmentation. Every direction you look, there are journeys underway. A probe launched 100 million years ago from a star in the constellation Cygnus might be at this very moment, drifting through the outskirts of the Orion Nebula, its instruments long dead but its message still intact in its frozen core. A seed ship from a long-dead civilization in the galactic center might be making its slow, patient approach to a young sun-like star in the Perseus arm, carrying the blueprints for life that might take root in 1 billion years. A fragment of a destroyed planet, blown into space by the death of its star, might carry within its rocky matrix the fossilized remains of creatures we cannot imagine, a natural museum piece drifting between the stars. The universe becomes not a static museum but a dynamic library, and the books are all in motion, constantly being exchanged between readers who might never meet. We are not just readers in this library, we are a book ourselves, a single, complex, beautiful story being written on this small, blue planet. Our story includes our evolution from simple chemicals to complex life, our development of consciousness and intelligence, our struggles and triumphs, our art and science, our dreams and fears. And occasionally, another book from a distant shelf drifts by, close enough for us to read its title. Perhaps a single tantalizing sentence from its cover, before it disappears back into the darkness. We get hints of other stories, other experiments in consciousness and complexity, other attempts to make meaning in a universe that seems indifferent to meaning. 3 Atlas was one such sentence, a brief glimpse of another story that we could not fully read. It whispered something to us as it passed, but the whisper was in a language we don't yet understand, using words we don't yet recognize. But the fact that we heard it at all, that we noticed its passing and wondered about its meaning, changes everything. It transforms the cosmos from a vast, empty stage where we perform alone into a busy thoroughfare where countless other performers are pursuing their own acts, their own stories, their own search for meaning and permanence. We are not alone on the stage. We simply haven't learned to see all the other players yet. Consider the possibility that this is the real solution to the Fermi paradox. That famous question posed by physicist Enrico Fermi, where is everybody? If the universe is so vast and so old, if there are so many stars and potentially habitable planets, why haven't we detected signs of other civilizations? We have been listening for loud, deliberate radio signals, the cosmic equivalent of someone shouting in a library, announcing their presence to everyone. But perhaps truly advanced civilizations don't shout. Perhaps they understand that the most effective, most enduring way to communicate, to travel, to exist on a galactic scale is to be quiet, to be patient, to work with the natural processes of the universe rather than against them. Perhaps the galaxy is actually teeming with intelligence, but it is a quiet, patient, and unobtrusive intelligence that expresses itself in ways we're only beginning to recognize. An intelligence that communicates not through radio waves that fade and scatter, but through the subtle chemistry of a comet's tail that can survive for millions of years. An intelligence that travels not in gleaming starships that would be visible from light years away, but in objects that look exactly like natural comets and asteroids. An intelligence that explores not through dramatic arrivals and departures, but through gentle passages that barely disturb the gravitational harmony of the systems they visit. We haven't found them because we've been looking for the wrong things, listening for the wrong signals. We've been expecting them to be like us, loud, obvious, eager to communicate, but perhaps they've evolved beyond that, to a quieter, more subtle way of existing in the universe. This is a profoundly peaceful and hopeful vision of the cosmos. It suggests that we are not alone, but that our neighbors are respectful of our solitude, our development, our need to discover things for ourselves. They are not strangers who will kick down our door and announce themselves uninvited. They are silent passers-by on the cosmic street, and if we are to meet them, it will be through a slow, gentle process of mutual discovery, played out over timescales that dwarf human history. There will be no sudden invasion, no dramatic first contact. Instead, there will be a gradual awakening to the fact that we have always been part of a community. We just didn't know it yet. As you drift closer to sleep, feeling the gentle pull of unconsciousness that mirrors the gentle pull of gravity that guides comets through space, let your mind wander through this universe of quiet possibilities. Imagine the silent flotilla of fragments from Atlas, continuing their journey through our solar system, each one a tiny, unanswered question mark drifting through the darkness. They are not done with their story. They will continue to orbit the sun for years, decades, perhaps centuries, slowly spreading apart, slowly fading from our ability to detect them, but never truly disappearing. They become part of the solar system's population of small bodies, indistinguishable from natural debris except to those who remember their origin and wonder about their purpose. Imagine the countless other travelers, of all shapes and origins, drifting in the great dark ocean between the stars. Some are natural, chunks of rock and ice ejected from their home systems by gravitational interactions, carrying no message except the story of their own composition and history. Others might be artificial, probes, seeds, messages, or memorials, each one designed for a specific purpose we can only guess at. They form a vast, invisible network of connections between star systems, a slow-motion exchange of matter and perhaps information that has been going on since the galaxy was young and will continue until the last stars fade to darkness. There is no need to feel small or insignificant in this vast populated cosmos. Instead, feel a sense of belonging, a sense of being part of something magnificent and mysterious. You're not a lonely anomaly in an empty universe. You are part of a vast community of matter and energy, and perhaps consciousness that fills the galaxy. Your ability to wonder about these things, to contemplate the possibility of cosmic visitors and messages, is itself one of the most remarkable phenomena in the entire universe. You are the means by which the universe contemplates itself, questions its own nature, wonders about its own possibilities. The quiet of your room is not isolation but connection. It resonates with the quiet of deep space, that profound silence that is not empty but full of potential. Your slow, steady breath echoes the slow, steady rhythms of the galaxy itself, the patient processes that unfold over millions of years. You're not just in the universe is in you. Every atom in your body, except for hydrogen, was forged in the heart of a star that lived and died before our sun was born. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon that forms the framework of your DNA, all of it is stellar material, cosmic dust that has been recycled through countless forms before becoming you. You are quite literally made of stardust, and you are dreaming of your home among the stars. Let the quiet possibilities of the universe be your lullaby tonight. Let the thought of these silent travelers, these ancient stories drifting in the dark, be a source of comfort rather than concern. They are reminders that the universe is not empty and meaningless, but full of potential meaning, full of stories waiting to be discovered, full of connections waiting to be made. The darkness between the stars is not a void, but a medium through which messages travel, through which consciousness might spread, through which the universe slowly becomes aware of itself through countless different perspectives. The universe is not empty. It is full of mystery, full of wonder, full of quiet possibilities that we are only beginning to glimpse. And you are a part of it all, a unique perspective through which the universe experiences itself, a brief but brilliant flame of consciousness in the vast darkness. As you drift towards sleep, carried by the same gentle forces that carry comets through space, know that you are not alone. You are surrounded by fellow travelers, some near, some impossibly far, some natural, some perhaps artificial, all following their own paths through the cosmic dark, all part of the same grand, mysterious, beautiful story that has been unfolding since time began. And so, our journey together through the mystery of Three-Eye Atlas is drawing to a close, though in truth such journeys never really end. They simply transform, like Atlas itself transformed from a single object into a cloud of fragments, each carrying forward a piece of the original story. We have travelled far tonight, not in physical distance but in the landscapes of imagination and possibility. We have journeyed from the shores of deep time where each grain of sand represents 1,000 years to the heart of a ghostly traveller whose true nature remains beautifully uncertain, and into the quiet, speculative realms of what might be hiding in the darkness between the stars. We have followed the faint light of Three-Eye Atlas, and we have found that its path leads not to a simple answer that we can file away and forget, but to a deeper, more beautiful set of questions that will continue to unfold in our minds long after this night has passed. We began by asking, was 3 Atlas built to survive eternity? And now, at the end of our contemplation, the answer is a gentle, peaceful, perhaps. And perhaps that is not just the only answer we need, but the best answer we could hope for. The question was never a puzzle to be solved and set aside, like a crossword completed and discarded. It was a doorway to be opened, a threshold to be crossed, an invitation to see the universe not as a collection of facts to be catalogued, but as a grand, unfolding poem whose verses we are only beginning to understand. The beauty of 3 Atlas lies not in what it definitively was, but in what it could be, in the space it creates for wonder in our too-certain world. The beauty of 3i Atlas was that it served as a screen onto which we could project our deepest cosmic wonderings, our hopes and fears about our place in the universe. Was it a natural comet, following the same patterns that have been playing out since the solar system was young? Was it a seed of life, carrying the biological potential of another world to ours? Was it an ancient probe, designed by intelligence we cannot imagine for purposes we cannot fathom? Was it a lonely tomb, the final monument of a civilization that faced its own extinction with grace and forethought? It was all of these things and none of them. It exists in the space between certainty and mystery, in that twilight realm where science meets philosophy, where facts meet dreams. It was a possibility made manifest, a whisper given form, and the act of listening to that whisper has changed our perception of the silence that surrounds us. The fragments of Atlas are still out there, continuing their journey through the darkness. They did not vanish when they faded from our telescope's view. They simply passed beyond our ability to track them, like ships disappearing over the horizon. They're continuing their journey, a silent, scattered procession, heading back out toward the cold, dark space from which they came, or perhaps onward to new destinations we cannot predict. Their light has faded from our instruments, but their journey continues, will continue for years, centuries, perhaps millennia to come. In 1,000 years they will be far beyond the orbit of Pluto, in that vast dark territory where the sun is just another star, slightly brighter than the rest. In 1,000,000 years they may be approaching another star, another system with its own planets, its own possibilities for life and consciousness. The story is not over. We were just privileged to witness a single, brief chapter. Like reading one page from a book written in a language we don't understand, but finding beauty in the shape of the letters, the rhythm of the words. And our own journey continues as well, the journey of human consciousness, of curiosity that cannot be satisfied, of wonder that cannot be exhausted. We will continue to build our telescopes, each generation seeing farther and more clearly than the last. We will continue to scan the skies with patient electronic eyes that never blink, never tire, never stop searching, and we will find other travelers. There will be a 4i and a 5i and a 10i and a 100i. Each one will bring its own unique story, its own set of mysteries, its own invitation to wonder. Each one will be another whisper from the deep, another hint that the universe is far more complex, far more interesting, far more filled with possibilities than we imagined. With each new visitor, we will learn a little more about the cosmic neighborhood we inhabit. We will refine our understanding of how objects move between star systems, what they're made of, where they come from, where they're going. We may one day find a traveler that gives us a clearer answer to the questions Atlas raised. An object whose artificial nature is undeniable, whose purpose is clear, whose message we can read. Or we may find that every visitor is as beautifully, maddeningly ambiguous as Atlas was, each one adding to the mystery rather than resolving it. And either outcome is wonderful in its own way. If we find proof of others, we will know we are not alone in the universe, that consciousness has emerged elsewhere, that we are part of a cosmic community. If we continue to find only mystery, we will know that the universe is a place of infinite poetry, a place that will always keep us guessing, always keep us wondering, always give us reasons to look up at the night sky with awe rather than understanding. The human desire for definitive answers is strong. We crave certainty like we crave water in a desert. We want to solve the puzzle and put it away on the shelf, completed and understood. We want to know, finally and completely, whether we are alone or part of a community, whether the universe has purpose or is simply a beautiful accident. But the universe does not operate on our terms, does not respect our need for closure. Its timescale is immense, its processes are subtle, and its secrets are kept close, revealed only slowly, partially in hints and whispers rather than clear declarations. To be a student of the cosmos is to learn the art of patience, to become comfortable with uncertainty, to find peace in partial knowledge. It is to learn to love the questions themselves, to find beauty in the mystery, to understand that the journey toward understanding is more important than the destination. So, as you prepare to let go completely, to drift into the final, peaceful state of sleep where your own consciousness becomes as mysterious as the cosmos itself, hold this thought in your mind. The mystery continues, and that is a beautiful thing. The universe has not given up all its secrets, has not revealed all its surprises. There are still great, wonderful, and profound things that we do not know, may never know completely. And in that not knowing, there is a space for dreams, for imagination, for the kind of wonder that makes life meaningful. The unknown is not a void to be feared, but a canvas on which we can paint our hopes, our possibilities, our dreams of what might be. Picture the cosmos one last time, not as a dark and empty place that diminishes us with its size and silence, but as a vast quiet garden where things grow slowly, where patience is rewarded, where mysteries bloom like flowers that take millions of years to open. Stars are being born right now in clouds of shimmering gas, their first light just beginning to shine. Planets are coalescing from rings of dust, their surface is still molten, their futures unwritten, and silent. Ghostly travelers are drifting on the slow currents of gravity, carrying their ancient secrets from one shore to another, messages in bottles on a cosmic ocean, waiting for someone, somewhere, somewhen, to find them and wonder at their meaning. It is all one great interconnected system, one majestic breathing organism of which we are a part. Your breath, rising and falling in the quiet of your room, is in rhythm with the tides of cosmic creation and destruction. The beating of your heart echoes the pulsing of stars, the rhythm of galaxies rotating, the expansion and perhaps eventual contraction of the universe itself. You are not an observer standing outside the universe looking in through a window. You are the universe, a part of it that has become conscious, that has developed the ability to observe itself, to question itself, to wonder at its own existence. This is the deepest mystery of all, not whether Atlas was built, but that the universe has produced beings capable of asking whether Atlas was built. Let the questions fade now, like stars fading in the approaching dawn. Let the need for answers dissolve like morning mist. There is nothing to solve tonight, nothing to figure out, nothing to understand completely. There is only this moment of peace, this feeling of connection to something vast and ancient and beautiful. The journey of 3i Atlas continues somewhere out there in the quiet dark, its fragments spreading like seeds on a cosmic wind. And your own journey continues too, inward now into the mysteries of sleep and dream, where your mind processes all we've contemplated, where your unconscious makes connections your waking mind cannot see, where you touch something deeper than thought. The stars will keep watch while you sleep. The silent travelers will continue their endless voyages, patient and purposeful or random and meaningless. We cannot know which, and tonight we don't need to know. The universe will continue its slow expansion, its patient evolution, its grand experiment in complexity and consciousness. And somewhere, perhaps, on a world orbiting a distant star, other beings are lying down to rest, wondering about a strange object that passed through their system, asking their own version of the question we've asked tonight. Perhaps they too are wondering if they're alone, if the universe has purpose, if the things that drift through the darkness carry messages or meanings. We are all part of the same story, even if we never meet, even if we never know of each other's existence. We are all temporary arrangements of matter that have somehow become aware, that have developed the ability to look up and wonder. We are all asking the same fundamental questions, feeling the same fundamental awe, experiencing the same fundamental mystery of existence. And in that shared wonder, even across impossible distances, we are connected. The mystery is safe with the universe. The questions will wait for tomorrow, for next year, for the next generation. For now, there is only peace, only rest, only the gentle drift into sleep. The universe is holding you, as it has always held you, as it will always hold you. You're made of it. You're part of it. You will return to it. The atoms that make up your body will outlive you by billions of years, will perhaps one day be part of another world, another life, another consciousness wondering about its place in the cosmos. You are temporary in form but eternal in substance, a brief pattern in an eternal dance, and that is beautiful, and that is enough. The journey of consciousness continues, has always continued, will always continue, in forms we cannot imagine, in places we will never see, in times we will never know. But tonight, in this moment, in this place, you are the universe knowing itself, and that is the greatest mystery and the greatest gift of all. Close your eyes now and let the darkness behind your eyelids merge with the darkness between the stars. Let your breathing slow to match the patient rhythms of space. Let your thoughts scatter like the fragments of Atlas, each one drifting on its own trajectory into the peaceful void of sleep. The questions will be there tomorrow if you want to return to them, but they don't need to be answered. They are beautiful in themselves, like stars, points of light in the darkness that give shape to the void, that create patterns and meaning where otherwise there would be only emptiness. You have travelled far tonight, from Earth to the edge of the solar system and beyond, from the present moment to deep time and back again, from certainty to mystery to a peace that transcends both. You have been a good companion on this journey, patient and curious, willing to wonder without demanding answers. And now it is time to rest, to let all of this settle into the deep places of your mind where understanding grows slowly, like crystals forming in a solution, like stars forming in a nebula, like life forming in the primordial soup of an ancient ocean. The story of Thuray Atlas is now part of your story, woven into the tapestry of your thoughts and dreams. Whether it was built or natural, whether it carried a message or was itself the message, whether it was unique or one of countless similar objects, these questions are now yours to carry, to contemplate, to share with others or keep to yourself. You are now part of the small community of humans who have wondered about this particular mystery, who have looked up at the night sky and imagined silent travellers drifting through the darkness, who have felt the vast peaceful presence of a universe full of secrets. Sleep is approaching now, that daily journey into mystery that we all take but never fully understand. Like Atlas approaching the sun, you're approaching a transformation, a change of state. Your conscious mind will fragment into dreams, each one carrying a piece of today's thoughts into new configurations, new possibilities. And like Atlas, you will emerge changed, refreshed, ready to continue your journey through the cosmos of consciousness. The boundary between waking and sleeping is like the boundary between our solar system and interstellar space. Arbitrary, gradual, but somehow significant. Cross it gently, peacefully, carried by the momentum of your thoughts slowing down, your awareness dispersing like a comet's tail in the solar wind. The universe continues its patient processes while you sleep. Somewhere, a star is being born. Somewhere else, a star is dying. Somewhere, perhaps, an object like Atlas is just beginning its million-year journey to another star. Somewhere, consciousness is emerging for the first time, looking up at unfamiliar stars and wondering if it's alone. And somewhere, consciousness is fading for the last time, looking up at familiar stars and knowing it was never alone. All of this continues while you rest, while you dream, while you become part of the quiet darkness that holds all possibilities. Let go now. Let go of the need to understand, the need to know, the need to solve the mystery. Let go of consciousness itself, that burden and gift that makes us human. Drift into the peaceful darkness where there are no questions because there is no one to ask them, no mysteries because there is no one to wonder. Become like Atlas in the cold between the stars, patient, silent, carrying your secrets through the darkness, waiting for the right moment to wake, to warm, to whisper your story to whoever might be listening. The journey continues, always continues, but for now, for you, there is only rest, only peace, only the gentle embrace of sleep carrying you into tomorrow, where new mysteries await, new wonders call, new fragments of the cosmic story drift past our small world. But that is for tomorrow. Tonight, there is only the quiet, the darkness, the peace of not knowing, not needing to know, simply being part of the beautiful, mysterious whole. Sleep now, carried by the same forces that carry comets through space, held by the same darkness that holds the stars, part of the same story that has been telling itself since the beginning of time, and will continue until time itself ends and perhaps begins again. The mystery of Three-Eye Atlas remains, will always remain, a gentle question mark written across the sky in ice and light. And you remain, will always remain in this moment, a gentle answer to the universe's question about whether consciousness was possible, whether wonder could emerge from matter, whether the cosmos could know itself. The question and the answer, the mystery and the wonder, the journey and the rest, they are all one, all part of the same infinite story. And now, as your part in tonight's chapter comes to a close, as your awareness fades like a comet's tail dispersing in the darkness, know that the story continues, that you are part of something eternal, something beautiful, something that transcends understanding and exists in the realm of pure being. Rest now, dream now, be at peace now. The universe is watching over you as you watched over its mystery tonight. The fragments of Atlas drift onward through the darkness, carrying their secrets. And you drift onward too, into sleep, into dreams, into the quiet place where all travelers eventually arrive, the place of rest, of peace, of home. The journey of Three-Eye Atlas continues. Your journey continues. The universe's journey continues. But for now, in this moment, in this breath, in this heartbeat, there is only peace, only stillness, only the profound and perfect silence of sleep approaching, arriving, embracing you like the darkness between the stars, not empty but full of infinite possibility, infinite peace, infinite rest.